Okay, dear speakers, let me start with brief introduction for housekeeping rules, some housekeeping rules so you understand, and then we make it enjoyable and as interactive as possible, but keeping a webinar, of course, safe. So this is the screen for speaker looks something like this. When you don't speak, please keep microphone muted. I think everyone does it. So please mute your microphone when you don't speak. And you can also put camera off and on, but when you speak, please put your camera on when you start speaking. You can see Q&A box. People will put questions in Q&A box. So please, after you finish your presentation discussion, once your paper is done, please go to Q&A box and type answers to your papers. That would be very great. Thank you. Because our time for Q&A limited, but people might put more questions in Q&A box. So please go to Q&A box, check questions for your paper. If you would like during Q&A ask question live for speakers, speakers can raise hand. And then if time allows, moderator will allow you to ask the question. Alternatively, if time does not allow for speakers, you can also put questions in chat box. Okay, because time is limited, but please, we really want your questions. So please type your questions in chat box. Okay, next for the audience just started to entering room. So for audience, this screen is very simple. For security reason, chat is disabled. So audience can only interact with us by putting questions in Q&A. We really want these questions. And even we don't have enough time to cover all questions during the session, authors ask to put their answer in the Q&A during the event. Okay. Okay, so please let me remind you, this is our usual consent for ADBI to use without permission or compensation. So this webinar is recorded, as you can see, we take photos. So all this will be posted on the website. And for that, we don't provide compensation or we don't obtain permission. And also, please note for the presentations which will be presented at this webinar, like all ADBI events, that they don't represent the views of ADBI, ADB, board of directors, the governments, and of course, we don't guarantee the accuracy of data. And these are own views of the authors only. Okay, so let me see. Do we have not yet Dean Sonobi? So let's wait for 1 minute. We're gonna wait. Dear speakers from today, any questions to me quickly before we start?
Dean Sonobi is already in, Dina.
Okay, great. So if no questions from urgent questions from speakers for today, if any questions during the event, please, you can put in chat box. Also, you can email us. Okay, let's start with the photo. Please, everyone, put your camera on. Doesn't matter when do you speak, day 1 or day 2 or day 3. Everyone, welcome to put camera on for a photo. And this photo will be posted on ADBI website. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Okay, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, and smile.
One more, Dina. I think just now, Professor.
Just a second. I'm gonna save. Yeah. Just a second. We take few. Yeah. And 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay, second photo taken. Okay, I save it. Okay, let's take one more. 1 more, 1, 2, 3, and smile. Please don't be shy. Put your camera on and smile. Great, many thanks. I took 3 photos. Okay, this is the ADBI KDI webinar on digitalization. Just a second. Promoting sorry, just a second. I'll share screen. Okay, so let's start. This is virtual workshop jointly organized by ADB, ADBI, and KDI, promoting digitalization for green and inclusive growth in developing Asia and the Pacific. And this is a 3-day workshop. This is first day of the 3-day workshop. It will start on the same time every day. Please join all 3 days. The same link will work on each day. You can share the link, which will be in chat box, with your friends who you think would want to join, and also agenda, bio, all information about this event. The link can be obtained via link. The link will be in chat box. So we don't need to read bio about each speaker extensively. Why? Because audience can easily go through the link and see the agenda and bio of each speaker. So link will be in chat box. So please check the link. And that link you can share with your friends as well. Okay. So let's start. And we are pleased to announce that the opening remarks will be provided by Dean and CEO of the Asian Development Bank Institute, Tetsushi Sanobe. As I explained before, the full biographies of each speaker available via link in the chat box. Dean Sanobe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dina. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon from Tokyo. I'd like to welcome you all to the workshop on promoting digitalization for green and inclusive growth in Asia and Pacific developing economies. This workshop is jointly organized by KDI, ADB, and ADBI. I'm grateful to KDI and ADB for their cooperation and collaboration, and I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to Executive Director Jung-wook Kim of the Center for International Development, KDI, and the Deputy Director General Chia-Shin Hu, Economic Research and Development Impact, ADB, for taking the time to join us to provide opening remarks. I'd like to let you know that this event is partly supported by KSTA project entitled Promoting Digitalization for Green and Inclusive Growth in Asia, which is funded by the Republic of Korea, E-Asia, and the Knowledge Partnership Fund administered by ADB. Thank you very much for the sponsors. And of course, we are thankful to the organizing team, which has worked hard to put together this timely and important workshop. I just said that this workshop is timely and important because this planet is not warming, but boiling. We experienced an extremely hot summer. It was hot and humid in some countries like Japan, and hot and dry in some other countries, causing extreme weather events and wildfires. We experienced COVID-19 pandemic where people had social distance with each other and their mobility was strictly restricted, which caused supply chain disruptions locally, regionally, and globally. These difficulties under the pandemic were mitigated by information and communication technology, especially the rapid spread of online meeting technology, which we are using right now. But people in the world were not equally accessible to this beneficial new technology. The access was limited to those who were relatively rich, and vulnerable people could seldom benefit from the technology. The phenomenon and the big policy challenge called digital divide. This workshop links these things together. It discusses how to overcome digital divide to propel digitalization to improve the livelihood of not only relatively rich, but the vulnerable people as well, and increase social inclusion, and how to promote digital transformation of economies, and how to use the technology to address climate change mitigation and adaptation to stop the global boiling. To mitigate and eradicate the digital divide would require a considerable amount of infrastructure investment. It is a type of last mile problem associated with infrastructure development needed to make societies and economies more inclusive. ADB and other multilateral development banks have been working on these problems very hard and achieving great progress. But now, these multilateral development banks are kind of expected to solve the climate problems as well. And then all the SDGs as well. So the world leaders are expecting the MDBs to work more and more without increasing their capital, but by reviewing their balance sheets and improving their operational models. But everybody knows that real progress toward green and inclusive societies and economies at scale is possible only if we develop more technologies and use them more actively and cleverly. Indeed, it has been a long time since scientists, policymakers, and think tanks, among others, began saying that digitalization would help the world become more inclusive, sustainable, and green. We do not have had a very good grand design, actually, or roadmap for the good use of technologies toward these goals yet. So I hope this 3-day workshop will contribute to this end, and that all participants actively exchange their views and experiences to maximize the benefit and impact of this workshop. Thank you very much, all the presenters, discussants, and the moderators. Thank you, Xiaobo and other friends, and ADB, ADBI, KDI colleagues. I'm sure you will make this workshop great. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Tinsanoi, for wonderful opening, for starting opening. And the next opening remarks will be provided by Chie-Sin Hu, who is Deputy Director General of Economic Research and Development Impact Departments at ADB. Chie-Sin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, evening, depending on where you are. I'm Jia-Xin, the DDG of Economic Research and Development Impact Department at ADB. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to this virtual workshop on promoting digitalization for green and inclusive growth in developing Asia and the Pacific. The workshop, as moderator has already mentioned, is jointly organized by ADB, ADBI, and KDI. This conference aims to understand how digitalization, especially digital technologies and innovative solutions, may shape developing Asia and shift toward a green and inclusive growth path. In recent years, especially during the pandemic, developing Asia has witnessed a surge in adopting digital technologies in social and economic activities. The digital solutions, such as smart technologies, online business platforms, online communication technologies, have significantly improved efficiency, connectivity, and information availability in Asian economies. This offers unique opportunities to mitigate climate change. Therefore, it is very useful to understand how digitalization can benefit green and inclusive economic growth, and what are the relevant policy implications. It is also important for Asian policymakers to know how to address issues associated with digitalization. For example, the coverage and gap in accessing digital technologies demonstrate big varieties in Asia. The share of population connected to mobile internet in 2020 recorded 68% in East Asia, but the corresponding share in South Asia was only 34%. there are significant coverage gaps in accessing digital solutions in Asia. This Sonobe-san has mentioned earlier. So this will invite additional inequality and prevent all to embrace new opportunities related to digitalization. Today, this workshop and related knowledge will generate new evidence on how digitalization can contribute to SDGs. It will also help ADB fulfill its role in promoting inclusive, resilience, and sustainable growth in developing Asia. In addition, our knowledge will help DMCs to form evidence-based policies to advance in digital technologies for more environmental and social benefits. Last, digitalization is one of our department's 6 priority research agenda. I'm very pleased to see knowledge partnership with prestige regional think tanks like ADBI and KDI at this event. I hope by working together, we can generate more awareness and make greater impacts of our research work and knowledge products. With this, I look forward to very stimulating discussions at the workshop and wish you all a very successful event. Thank you.
Many thanks, Jae-Sin-Hu, for excellent opening remarks. And the final opening remarks will be provided by Jung-Won Kim, who is Executive Director for Center for International Development and Korea Development Institute, KDI.
Thank you, Dina. It is really an honor to make this speech. So, okay. Thank you, Dina. And this is important seminar. We share some ideas and knowledges about the digitalization and climate change issues altogether. So far we suffered a lot due to the pandemic recently, but the digital transformation was accelerated due to the pandemic. However, the depth and scope of digitalization differs across the countries. So it is not common and evenly shared for the digitalization or outcome of the digitalization, of course. So it is strongly important to see whether the digitalization itself successfully occurred across countries and it is shared in even and just way. So that is one of the key issues over the Asian regions. And another issue, climate change issue, is dominating other agendas over the globe. So we'd like to see the evidence of the digitalization and climate resilience issues at the same pace, and the academia and expertise over the globe all together share their ideas and their research, the outcomes about those 2 issues. So this event is one of the finding stones for further the cooperative works toward the digitalization and climate change issues. So we really happy to see the outcomes, even though most of the research outcomes are at the initial stage, and the finalized work will be announced and published next year. But we hoped valuable comments from the audiences and even the authors of the presenters, of course. And I'd like to thank you, ADB and ADBI, for co-hosting this event. Also, I'm really appreciate Korean government to financially support this important event and the publications. And thank you.
Many thanks for providing opening remarks. Let's move to the next in our agenda. The project overview will be provided by Shu Tian, who is senior economist from ADB. She's the one who actually developed this idea, and she will explain about this project.
Thanks, Dina. Let me share my screen. Thanks, Dina. Thanks, Dean Sonobe, Jae-Sin, and Jung-Wook. It's a great pleasure that to see all attending this workshop. I'm presenting here the project overview on behalf of the entire team, ADB, ADBI, and KDI. So as Dean Sonobe just explained, this we have 9 colleagues from 3 parties to jointly conduct research for this joint research project under promoting digitalization for green and inclusive growth. And then as Jessie mentioned just now, we through this research projects, we try to understand the research questions. So how digitalization, in particular digital technologies, can contribute or affect green and inclusive growth in developing Asia, and in particular via what channels. And then the second is what might be the challenges presented for now that digitalization might bring in terms of green and inclusiveness, and then how policymakers in developing Asia can address them. This project is promoted by some facts that we observe. So first of all, as shown in left-hand side chart, basically developing Asia witness rapid advances in adoption of digital technologies, especially since the pandemic. At the same time, we do see, as Jessie mentioned in the right-hand side chart, there is a quite uneven distribution of adopting the digital technologies. And then at the same time, we do see there are some digital technologies that try to generate environmental and inclusive impacts. And then why do we still need to produce these knowledge products? Basically, we see in the literature, there are already some evidence to see how digitalization or some digital solutions can affect greenness and inclusive positively or negatively. There are many evidence, as you can see in the second and the third bulletin points from the literature. This is just part of them. But what we see is still missing is a clear conceptual framework that can link different pieces of evidence to a conceptual framework. So for example, under green growth, how do we organize the evidence to come up with a statement or argument? This green digital technology in particular, can support green growth, similar to for inclusiveness. And then on top of that, we do see there is still some gap in producing evidence from emerging Asia, especially those from South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Central West Asia. So this is why we think it is important for us to understand the conceptual framework and then also add rich evidence from across Asia. So I will give you one example what this project might do. For example, under green growth. So as you can see in bulletin 2, there is evidence that, well, digital technologies can reduce emission, can reduce energy consumption, improve energy efficiency, green productivity, green investment, green innovation. But how to put them together is under the green growth framework, it is still not there. At the same time, there is also negative impacts. For example, there are some evidence to see, oh, okay, as digitalization keep advancing, we see energy consumption actually increase in certain groups. And then also we do see the emission might increase in certain sectors, for example, ICT. So how to address these issues associated with digitalization for green growth is another gap that hasn't been fully discussed. So that is how we wanted to link the existing evidence plus some new Asian evidence to a conceptual framework, and then try to understand the working channels and come up with some policy-based, evidence-based policies for developing Asia. Very briefly, the 3-day workshop agenda follows our research agenda. Our research outline, basically, we will have ADBI, KDI co-branded book of the selected research papers that you will hear at this workshop. And then at the same time, ADBI and KDI will publish a report that can link this evidence to a conceptual framework of green growth and inclusive growth. So basically, we will follow this structure. So we will conduct a review of digital development in Asia, and then come up with our conceptual framework. And then the 3 sections will be discussed in the 3 afternoons of the workshop. So today, you will hear evidence on inclusiveness, and then we will put evidence under digitalization and inclusiveness in our books and reports tomorrow. And then section 3 is environmental impacts of digital technology. And then our section 4 will consist of papers to be presented on day 3 of the workshop, in particular, how to address digital divide, greening the digital infrastructure, foster digital innovation, green digital innovation, and then understand the drivers of digital transformation. Putting together, we try to see during this workshop, we will see how we can better organize the existing knowledge to the conceptual framework. We will also, after the mapping, we will see what is still missing to address in our knowledge products. And then the team of 9 colleagues look forward to hear your kind comments and advice to see what is still missing, where needs to be further strengthened. Your valuable comments will help us to improve our knowledge products. So with this, I will end my project overview. I would like to thank to ADBI and KDI for the great collaboration, and thanks to the team for the nice research collaboration too. Dina.
Yeah,
I'm done.
many thanks. Many thanks, Grace, for explaining the project. It's an excellent overview. So since now we understand the project, let's move to first session. And we are very fortunate to have our moderator, Yuni Jong. She is Senior Digital Technology Specialist from ADB.
Thanks, Dina. Welcome, everybody, to the first session of the virtual workshop focused on digitalization and inclusiveness. And as you've heard, inclusiveness and how digital technologies are being used to narrow the development gaps for the most vulnerable communities is one of the main focus of the research. And I'm very pleased that we will have 3 papers that explore different digital solutions, including remote learning, fintech, and agri-tech in various parts of Asia to explore the state of the digitalization and their use in promoting the inclusiveness. Just as a quick reminder, each presenter will have 20 minutes to present, and we'll have a discussant following each presenter. And we'll allocate about 5 to 7 minutes. And those who are participating, please use the Q&A function of the Zoom to ask your questions. And presenters, please feel free to use those Q&A box if for some reason I'm not able to give you the airtime to answer the questions, so that we can stay on time for the rest of the day. Hey, so with that, very pleased to invite Professor Pradeep Kumar Chaudhary from Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University of India, who's also a research fellow of Harvard University, with a paper titled, "I'm unlucky to get the benefits from remote learning, but why? Evidence from inter- and inter-household comparisons from rural India." It's a very counterintuitive title, but one of the reasons why we were intrigued as well. So Professor Chaudhary, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yoni, for this opportunity. I sincerely thank ADBI, the entire team, for conceptualizing this idea and getting me into the platform. In the initial review meeting, I got several interesting comments on the idea itself, and then I'm getting into my paper. Hope my voice is audible to everyone and my slides are visible.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an interesting idea that I am nurturing on the inequalities in remote learning in the rural part of India, where almost 60% of the population do live in rural India. So this is an interesting project I am taking care, and I sincerely thank ADBI for this opportunity again. So let me start. I have several things to say. I hope I will keep my time in, like I will not delay. Yeah. So what is I am going to do? There is an unanswered question I found while I got into this debate. And that unanswered question is, do access to remote learning access to remote learning varies among households in rural India? That is the question I raised, and a pertinent question in this context. And how does it determine children's learning outcome in reading, math, and English in the pandemic time? Because as you know, pandemic, when the COVID-19 pandemic came, so this is an important idea that got into that remote learning will be the ultimate thing that children will be getting something out of that. So I'm trying to establish this idea through the very recent data that I am going to tell you about my story. So what do we do in this? This is my main unanswered question, and this is what we do. The study examines two important points. One is to analyze the inequality in access to remote learning facilities in rural India. The question is, what are the socio-economic and household factors explain these inequalities? Second one is, to what extent access to remote learning improves children's learning outcome in math, reading, and English in pandemic time. Particularly, I want to examine how its effect vary with children's age and parents' education. Two important factors I found from my analysis very pertinent. Let me get into the motivation. COVID-19 pandemic, as I said, has accelerated the need to apply technology in education. This is very critical now. We all talk about this. This was there, but during the pandemic, this was being highlighted often in the literature and in the policy documents, including ADBI. I saw made several interesting ideas of ADBI that tells that how remote learning matters for children's education and learning. Countries should strengthen and improve their remote learning initiative to minimize the learning loss. We had a huge learning loss across the globe, and in Asia Pacific, it was more so. India was the country where the longest school closure was there, so it affected a lot to the Indian children, particularly who belong to rural areas. Several works have found a positive effect of the digital technology on learning outcome of children. You can say Muralidharan and many others work. Recent one, very recent one, it's not about the pandemic it only. So even pre-pandemic level, they said that technology helps a lot. This helps in addressing glaring learning inequalities in India. There are several evidence. While technology-aided instruction may have a lot of potential to improve student learning, that is clear from the literature and also from the policy documents, provisioning of educational technology is very limited in India. That is very interesting to examine, particularly in the context where we are asking for, or we are questioning the social inclusion and social cohesiveness in the human society. But there is a considerable growth. What I see in the alternative, like in the other part, that there is a considerable growth of edtech companies in India, particularly in the private sector. A global leader, the India is a global leader. And that I consider, I term it as edtech capitalism. So there is an edtech capitalism happening in India, and it is very clearly seen in the Indian context. At the same time, there are people who are not able to get access to digital technology. So there is a clear inequality that we can see in the Indian context. So this is very, very clear. Let me get into the policy focus, which is an important point in this entire workshop. I found that how important it is like getting into the policy domain. So one is when we get into the policy focus, the first important thing, as I said, I think in the introduction, it was being said that SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goal 4. So that clearly tells that how actually SDG highlighted the usefulness of this digital technology and also the life learning opportunity for all. Similarly, the Global Education Monitoring Report, if you see the current one, which is on technology and education by UNESCO, that clearly tells about the importance of education and technology. I will be a little fast given the time constraint. So we have, India got a very recently got the, not very recently, I would say, into 2020. So I would say this is also a recent one, the National Education Policy 2020, that emphasizes the critical role of technology. There is a clear understanding of that fact in the education policy in India 2020. And the final one, if you see the policy context, that COVID-19 has accelerated the need to apply educational technology or technology use of remote learning in the global level. So there is a clear global policy focus in this. If you see the literature and contribution of this, that our study, how it is contributing, the digital divide, if you say that is very clear in the Indian, like in the global as well as in Indian context, that okay, there is a glaring evidence during pandemic period that is happening. With many students lacking the necessary devices and internet connectivity, there are several studies. Millions of children were left with limited educational opportunity, as you say, and particularly the people from rural, children from marginalized groups and also from rural areas. Studies recognize that factors such as socioeconomic characteristics, assets, household assets, resources, endowments, those play significant role in shaping educational outcome. schools in wealthier areas, particularly in private schools and other kind of schools which are located in wealthier, like where rich people do live in, their online participation is significantly higher, and particularly the students from rural area, they suffer the most. While the literature on technology and education is increasing very clearly, and there is a growing debate in India, particularly after the pandemic period, COVID-19 pandemic, I find that a few studies till date have examined the inequality in access to educational technology, and more importantly, how it is associated with the learning outcome of the children. I don't find many studies in this context. So what I'm going to do in this, I'm going to do the following, like what data I am using, given my objective. So the data and method are as follows. I have given a detailed understanding. I may be skipping a little bit in this, but you can see this very clearly. I'm using the most recent data, most recent, I would say now only, like I got delayed in my paper because of the data, the delay in the data. So after my changing to them, the answer they gave me this 2022 data. Not too many they have given, but I requested very specifically to them for this analysis. So this is ASSER, Annual Status of Education Report, Pratham or conducts it as a nationally representative household survey in rural India, covering almost 616 districts, so it's so many, close to 20,000 villages, 300 for 74,000 households, 699,000 children in the age group of 3 to 16. This is a huge data set in rural India. For currently enrolled children in the age group of 3 to 16, the data is collected on enrollment status, while basic learning status on reading, math, and English is collected for the children in the age group of 5 to 16. Like if you see the earlier ASSER rounds, like before 2020, the data set has not much information on access to smartphone and internet penetration, but this is very clear now. Additionally, ASSER collects data on village level and also the school level. The survey collects 4 indicators on remote learning. If you see that, mobile phone, smartphone number, how many, and internet availability. Similarly, if you see the learning level, which is an important outcome variable I am going to use, there is reading, math, and English, and they are coded as like this. You can read it. I am not reading that thoroughly because time also, there is a time constraint. The analysis is done at 2 levels. First, to find out the determinants of access to remote learning facilities, and second one is to find out how unequal access and the use of technology at the household level results in learning inequality among children. So there are 2 things. And the econometric specification is very clear because we are trying to understand the internet access, its impact, why is the values for learning outcome, and also the access to remote learning in 2 cases, because I have examined in 2 parts. One is inequality in access, the other one is how it impacts on learning outcomes. So this is very clear, particularly focusing on parent education and even gender inequality, how village infrastructure plays a critical role and all that. Let me get into the descriptive evidence, and also I will get into the empirical evidence. There are several tables I have generated in the paper, but I may not be showing, like I have done that here, I have got that, but I may not be speaking on all the tables. So it is like, if you see the inequality in access to digital learning by gender between male and female, there is a glaring differences. If you see, there are 3 cases. One is access to mobile, access to smartphones, and access to internet. If having a smartphone, you can see that there are some differences, though not very significant, but still there is a difference between male and female in access. Similarly, if you say, they see that by father's education level, by access to, because that is an important indicator of socioeconomic status, father's education, there is significant differences in the access to mobile, access to smartphone, and access to internet. This is no schooling starting from above and 10. This is the way the data is being collected. So you can see there is a difference. I'm not getting into each of the figures, but you can see that. Similarly, by mother's education, you see there are also inequality in access to digital devices like mobile, smartphones, and also the internet access. If you see by household type, house type, that is also another important indicator ASSER collects. One is Pakka household, half Pakka and Kacha. I think many of you who are not aware of the Indian housing system, so Pakka is the best one, you can say. There is a rank, and the Kacha is the lowest one. Half Pakka is in between. So according to the household status, it is also one of the wealth, like you can examine that this is one of the indicators of wealth of the household. So there also you see very clearly there is inequality in access in all the 3 indicators I am saying. Similarly, if you see by school type, government and private, and madrasas and convent schools. So there are 4 categories of schools they have collected. If you are not like aware about the madrasa, so those are religious affiliated, like Muslim religious affiliated schools, and convent also sometimes associated with religious, but they are also some kind of private. So under the 4 categories, if you see their children, there is a significant difference in the school type, and the school children who are accessing private schools, as I said, their access to internet and mobile, even smartphones, are higher. So this is one. The other one is about state-wise. There is also significant inequality in the states for access to smartphone, access to internet. I have highlighted a bit. The green one is the lowest one, and the red one is the highest. If you see the access to smartphones, like the richer state like Punjab having the 97.49, while Jharkhand, which is an eastern state and also poor state, there it is very less. Similarly, there is inequality in access to internet as well. If you, what I did, I tried the reading level in this, and then the household percentage of household without internet and with internet. So you can see that there is a correlation, like association between reading level of the child, arithmetic level, and English level with access to internet, which I have examined in detail with my empirical exercise. Let me get into my empirical results. So first result is the OLS result, which I am trying to understand the predictors of access to mobile, smartphone, and internet access. One is the mobile, then smartphone, then internet access. Internet today, that was the question asked, whether internet was accessible today to your mobile. So that is the way the data is being captured. You can see that I have taken so many variables. I have not given everything here, but I have given the main results here by how it differs by between male and female, child age, father's education, mother's education. Then I have also looked at the household wealth, household socioeconomic status. There are several other indicators, and also many robustness check I did. And I found that this is very clearly coming out that there is significant inequality in access to internet, the digital devices, including internet, and several household and socioeconomic factors determine this. If you see this very clearly, the next one also more or less same. This is about the mobile of access to internet, while the children enrolled in school. This is only the households where the children enrolled in school. The earlier was in overall. Here also I am finding very significant difference. For instance, private, if you see the first line, so private, like children, households who are sending their children to private schools, there they have higher probability of getting into mobile, smartphone, internet in all the cases. Similarly, it increases with father's education. With the increase in father's education, there will be higher access to the internet and all that, smartphone and all. Similarly for mother's education, and I have also examined several other socioeconomic factors. If you see the order logic for how actually the access to smartphone affect the learning outcome. So here are reading level, math level, and English level. In household has a mobile. This is the idea that main variable. I have looked at with several other interesting variables, but here I am saying that this is positively affecting the both reading, math, and English level with highest impact on the math. I have also looked at that was all mobile, including smart and non-smart. Here only smart mobile I have looked at. There the impact is little higher, and it is highest for English level. So I explained all this in my writing, why and all that, intuitions and also the context, but I'm not actually telling very clearly here. I can get into that if there will be some questions to me. Similarly, if you see the impact on internet, access to internet, because I read at 3 level, mobile, smartphone, and internet, here the highest impact is there. Like on the reading level, it is highest, 26 percentage points more likely who has internet than who do not have. Similarly on math and also on the English. What I did, interestingly, I estimated the predicted probabilities of different kinds, like with children's age and parents' education, and for parents' education separately for father and mother. So what I am trying to do, I have drawn 9 different graphs. I am not getting into each of them. I am explaining one. This y-axis is child, x-axis is child age, and in this case, y-axis I am giving reading level, and here I am interacting with access to internet and access to not access to internet, with the highest outcome and lowest outcome. So there are several things I have looked at here. A little bit may be confusing, but I'm trying to clarify this. So this graph shows, for instance, the silver line, if you see, which is increasing at the top. That means with the increase in child's age, the probability of reading level increases, but that increases for the students having access to internet, that is higher than having no access to internet, like yellow line. So for both it increases, but there is a significant difference, that is the marginal predicted probability is higher for the student having access to internet. Everything else remains same. So controlling for all other things, I'm trying to say that how internet access matter in this category. Similarly, for the lowest level, it is declining. The probability of decline, which child says the probability of reading, because that is the negative side, because that is no reading. If you see the zero is very clear. Zero is outcome 4 is the child could read and grade level 2 text, and outcome 1 if the child could not read anything. So you can understand that. The second one, if there will be confusion, I can explain you, but I am also looking at the time. Similarly, I looked at the child says for math level, English level. So everywhere you see that the students having access to internet, the main message, are having higher predicted probability of doing better in English, math, and reading. Similarly, I did for father's education. You see, with father's education, the top 2 lines, the probability of doing better in math increases, but it is higher for children having internet access. Similarly, for math level, that same is true. For English level, the same is true with some variations in that predicted probability, because the gap between the 2 upper line is not same for reading, math, and English. They are different because they are predicted and marginal predicted probability differs. Similarly, I did for mothers also, and I got more or less similar picture, 3 pictures for reading, math, English. Now, the key takeaways I want to explain, because I have only 2 minutes left. So the key takeaways, it is very clear that empirical results show a glaring regional and socio-economic inequality in access to digital technology in rural India. Also, we find significant effect of access to digital devices and internet student and its impact on student learning outcome. We are giving micro level evidence in this. So the findings of the study are useful in building a resilient education system that would help minimizing learning loss due to external shocks that can disrupt learning. It might happen again also or some other time. It's not only pandemic. There are many other situations where the schooling structure is getting dismantled and the children are not going to school. Even in Delhi recently, because of the high air pollution, schools were closed. So there are several other instances. So the study motivates future research examining the mechanisms through which remote learning can augment teaching and all that. That is an important area that one can do. Let me get into an important slide, which is policy implications, recommendations for developing Asia and the Pacific, which was the need of this, and I have clearly spelled out. Asia and the Pacific region has the second highest share of rural population in the world after Africa. So it is important to look at what is happening in the rural India, which is constitute a major population. However, addressing learning needs of rural school-going children in Asia is a big challenge. Very clearly, it has come out in the policy documents. Significant learning crisis in the region, and integrating technology education is advocated in several policy documents. But what I find that there is a policy puzzle. What is that policy puzzle? Because of the use of technology. Sometimes parents are not sure whether to give the students to use technology or not. There is a fear factor also because of artificial intelligence, now ChatGPT and other things. So there is a policy puzzle, but I want to clarify that policy puzzle. So because of the evidence that generated in this study, also in other studies on rural India, suggest for reducing the gap in access to digital devices and internet. And that establishes a statistically significant impact on the children's learning outcome. So it is clear that we should get into this debate, and in rural India, there should be more access to digital learning, and that because that has a clear significant impact on all levels of learning outcome, as I said, reading, math, and all that. As the data used for this study reveals a post-pandemic story very clearly, because this data is collected in the pandemic time and post-pandemic time, we suggest that the rural part of Asia Pacific in building, and they should try in building a resilient education system that would help minimize the learning loss due to external shocks that can disrupt learning. That is being said very clearly in the policy context. So thank you again, the ADB, for giving me this opportunity. I am happy to get the comments because this is very much work in progress. It would immensely help me to get a very good paper for me, like writing a very interesting and also very informative paper. So thank you again. I would be happy to take comments and suggestions.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you very much for keeping the time. Interesting to see, one, the evidence of digital technologies contributing to the outcome. At the same time, the challenges that we face in providing even equal access and how that might contribute to the inequality as well. So at this point, I'd like to if you could please mute yourself. those who are not speaking, that would be great. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Daniel Suradaya, Research Fellow from ADBI, to share his reflections and observations of the paper. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Yuni. Thanks, Pradeep, for presenting the paper. I have some comments, and these will not be, that many, but hope they are useful to strengthen the paper further. So just to summarize the paper for all of us, there are two research questions. What's the extent of inequality in access to EdTech in India? Social identity and household factors. What's the association between access to ICT in the family and its use on children's learning outcomes? And how does the effect of EdTech vary within a family's socioeconomic and cultural background? This is what's written in the draft paper. The paper is descriptive. Pradeep mentioned several times in the paper that he does not attempt to establish causality. So he uses the words like association and correlations. The data is from the after 2022, which is a household survey in rural India. Covers children 5 to 16 on their enrollment and reading, math, and English skills. ASAR is repeated cross-section survey, so there is no panel component. We can't track students over time. In 2022, the survey collected information on access to smartphones and internet at the household level. In some sections of the paper, Pradeep mentioned that there is access to digital technology at the individual level, but I'm not sure if this is the case or not. So, would appreciate a clarification. The skills, the reading, math, and English skills are measured in categories: 1, no skills, 3, 4, or 5, depending on the test. On the skill is the highest skill as tested. It's unclear at this stage, reading the paper, whether these categories are tied to the curriculum, for example, or how they are designed in such a way that the final outcome is a category between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The findings, there are 3 main findings. 72% of households have access to smartphones. Conditional on having smartphones, 88% of households have internet access. Pradeep also found that access is positively correlated with proxies of household wealth. And also finally, internet access has a positive correlation with skills, controlling for a host of other control variables, including wealth and these things. So I should note at this stage that the paper is in a very early version. Some parts are not complete. It's mainly tables and some figures added at the end. So I hope that my comments can help Pradeep in finishing the paper. So I have 3 main comments. Basically, the first one is improve the rigor of the analysis. For example, in terms of empirical strategy, I know you talk about association and correlation and these things, but it would be nice if you could attempt to establish causality, because that's the most important thing when you want to do policy recommendations. It's hard to do policy recommendations when your paper is based on associations. There's a lot of studies on these things that that find a positive correlation between use of technology and some particular outcomes. And then the recommendation is every child should be given a laptop. And then actually some governments did that. Some governments actually provide a laptop to every child, and then they find results to be 0. So that's something that we want to avoid, especially in a developing country context where resources are limited. So ways to attempt to establish causality, there are several ways. The literature has suggested or has used different instruments for internet or smartphone access. There are studies that look at topography. There are even newer studies that look at lightning strikes that are available globally at a grid level, where you can use this as IV for internet or smartphone access. A lot of your paper also has its school type. So, you check whether when a student is enrolled in a private school or in a madrasa or something. There's a large literature on endogenous school type. Basically, parents choose a child's type of school. It doesn't happen randomly. So you can use some of the methods that these papers have introduced or have suggested. You can do a bounds analysis. You can say something like, depending on how much we assume the unobservables are playing a role in the analysis, then we can do minimum or maximum, do the Oster bounds, for example. Another point I want to make in this is that when you add endogenous variables as independent variables in your model, like school types and these things, when you focus mainly on internet access or smartphone access, adding these variables actually weakens the analysis, because now all the biases are everywhere and you don't know how to get them solved. So even for a correlational study, you should avoid adding endogenous variables. Second point is on accuracy. You are using access to smartphone or internet at the household level. And in the paper, sometimes you mention EdTech, sometimes you mention access to remote learning. So these are not proxies for EdTech or access to remote learning. So maybe there are specific questions on these things that you can use rather than access to smartphone or internet. I mentioned the second point. The third point is where are the proxies for social identity and culture background, which you have in your paper, but you didn't have in your model or in your results. The fourth one is what's equation coefficients in an ordered logit regression. So you show it in the paper, and then it seems that it's marginal effects, but I'm not sure what it means. So racing now. Second comment, you should establish the paper's contribution. You should provide context. You should start with a descriptive analysis on the state of outcomes in rural India, and also state the contribution of your paper. How does this paper add to the literature, either in India or in developing countries in general? My final point is on some consistencies. So table 1 and table 4, you show them both. I think you get these mixed up because in this one here, 72% have access to smartphones, 88% access to internet. But in the second table, it's actually flipped. So 88% access to smartphones, 72% access to internet. So maybe check these things. Sample size are different. And then finally, title needs to be closer to the content, and the policy recommendations currently do not come from the paper. So you talk a lot about like learning loss and these things, but these are not part of the data that you're looking at. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for the constructive comments. And Professor Yip, if you already have quick response, it'd be great. There is one question.
I sincerely thank Daniel for this. This is great for me.
Okay.
He has gone through very clearly, and I apologize that I did not give you the paper, but now I have almost done. And also, as you can see my presentation, I did some predicted probability estimations. There are several other things I did, all robustness check also. Most of the things I did, like some of the things, not most, some of the things I already did. And I won't say that now I will respond, but I'm very, very happy that I got an opportunity to get comments from you. That is my only point, but I don't think I should reflect now. Is it necessary? Otherwise, I would be happy that I will take care of those things in my paper, and I will make a very good paper, and I must acknowledge Daniel's contribution in this. And that would be great. I have never seen
Professor,
such
there is a question. Right. No, there is a question on the Q&A chat. And let me just read it out and see if we have enough time. So the question is, the culture and poverty are among key factors that stand against the Indian people and children education, and how technology and digitalization can mitigate it. If you can provide a quick response.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, a little outside of my work. It is very odd, but still I will say that that's poverty. If you want to reduce the poverty in Indian society, then one way I look at is education. So that's what we are talking about. And this educational inequality is leading to income inequalities and other social inequalities in Indian society. So that's the idea, that if we give better quality education, not necessarily through remote learning, as Daniel said, it's not necessarily that it is happening only through remote learning, but if you give them quality schooling and all, definitely we will reduce the poverty, cultural and even socio-economic inequalities in the Indian society. Yeah, this is my very brief response to this big question.
Thank you, Professor. And I think we can move on to the second paper since we're running slightly behind the overall workshop schedule. So for the second paper, I'm very excited to invite our very own Dina back to the stage to present this time her paper, The Impact of FinTech Use on Family Business and Empirical Evidence from Household Survey in Developing Asia. So Dina, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Yuni. Yeah, so I'm happy to present the paper from our own data collection by ADBI using very fresh 2022 data. Currently, we are collecting 2023, but it's not complete, so we are using the most available, the recent available 2022. And as I said, this is funded and conducted by ADBI. And it's written with my great co-authors from ADBI, all from ADBI, Wataru Kodama, Peter Morgan, and Von Trinh. Okay, so after since COVID started, in Japan we were locked down. We couldn't travel. But when I started to travel in 2022, since I started to go to my home, Kazakhstan, and then I also went to Manila to ADB, I noticed big difference. In Kazakhstan, the fintech was used everywhere, from paying for public transport with photo of my hand, paying for public bus, which cost 90 tenge, but I used the phone to pay for that. And then, of course, transferring money from people to people. So it's everywhere. Even I was shocked that when I saw even people selling small items on the street, they also accept mobile payments. Yeah, but in Manila I didn't see this. So then I thought oh, interesting, what's the difference since COVID started between what we call CAREC region. CAREC means Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, and ASEAN region. Because ADBI, we conduct a survey in both regions. So then we wanted to see this family business. What is family business? Family business is a micro business, like very, very small business, family business. And of course, in our developing Asia, like in CAREC region, ASEAN, that plays quite important role for people income. Of course, we have some barriers like access to finance. It's important barrier. And also low financial literacy. So we wanted to see this fintech use and financial literacy. And we used the sample from ADBI household survey in 7 ASEAN and 10 CAREC countries. So the focus is that since this pandemic, of this data. Yeah, so this data we started since pandemic started, ADBI, since 2020, and now it's every year we conduct it already. And to understand was before like COVID impact and so on. It's computer assisted telephone survey because was COVID, person to person was not possible. So it was computer assisted telephone survey, each country 1,000 households. So it included many questions, and fintech and financial literacy was part of this survey. So if you look at the map, the job is impressive, right? Geographically, if you look, that's the coverage of ADBI survey, 17 countries and 1,000 households in each country. Okay. So what did we find about fintech? So what's interesting? My impression was right. In CAREC region, fintech is used more than in ASEAN. So you can see that in CAREC region, only 10% who are not using fintech, only 10%. So it means that 90% are using fintech of households, all households. Yeah, and in ASEAN, half of households are not using fintech, so meaning that only half is using. And of course, we also ask since when you are using. So you can see that many people, some people started during and some before pandemic. Yeah, but what's interestingly that in CAREC, 90% of people using fintech, while in ASEAN, only half using fintech. Now, if you look at across countries, many countries are quite similar, but we have some country differences. So we cannot just say, oh, the whole CAREC using fintech. No, we cannot say that. So there are some country differences. That's, for example, it's Azerbaijan. Interestingly, that nearly half not using fintech. And in Turkmenistan, it's only 14%, but the rest are quite large share of using fintech. Yeah. Okay. Now, what for they use? Because fintech is quite broad term, right? But what do they use fintech for? And again, we compare two regions here, and and this is for household business, for household family business. So those who have family business, they use fintech, interestingly, quite similar in CAREC and ASEAN. So around 40% of family businesses, both CAREC and ASEAN, are using fintech. So this is interesting, right? When we look at overall households, the previous version, the previous slide I showed you, there's a big difference between CAREC. So 90% in CAREC households using fintech and half in ASEAN. But when we go to business, when we ask about family business, the story is quite similar. 40% of businesses, family businesses in both CAREC and ASEAN are using fintech. So in terms of family business, the number is similar. And what for? The largest number said that they're using fintech for receiving payments from customers. And the story again, same in CAREC and ASEAN, very similar story. And then the second reason will be for paying to suppliers. So again, similar story for CAREC and ASEAN. And the third reason will be for access to finance, raising capital, taking loans. Yeah, okay. And so for family business, actually, use of fintech is quite similar for CAREC and ASEAN. That's interesting. Also, we looked at financial literacy, like this is important, right? So for financial literacy, we use the existing methodology developed by OECD, INFE. They have this methodology to calculate the index of financial literacy score. So we just followed this methodology. So it's divided into financial knowledge, financial behavior, financial attitude. So the total sum of all scores will be 17. So if you get 17, means you are 100% financial literate. If you get, let's say, half of that, then you are 50% financial literate. So what scores we got for CAREC and ASEAN? What do you think? Okay, so the results here showed, so we ask questions, like different questions to calculate the score. And the maximum, I remind you, 17, but you can see for all the regions, ASEAN and CAREC, no one exceeded 10. So the maximum should be 17, but no one exceeded 10. So that means the average score of ASEAN is around 9, which means 55% of financial literacy, so half of financial literacy. And in CAREC, even lower, it's 7.3 average, which is less than half of maximum financial literacy score. And so it's not only CAREC lower than ASEAN, but both ASEAN and CAREC has low financial literacy comparing to G20 countries. So in G20 countries, average is 11.6 score, which is 68% of financial literacy. So I can say that in both regions, financial literacy quite low comparing to G20, and CAREC is lower. And particularly, you can note these 3 countries which quite low. That's Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan, quite low. So you can see financial literacy varies across countries, but overall, it's quite low, average low comparing to G20. So let's go to the model. We wanted to see who is using fintech, right? First one, who is using fintech. So independent, in the right-hand side, we added financial literacy and the other household business characteristics, which we think can affect use of fintech. And then second regression, we wanted to see performance. How does fintech help with performance actually, right? Is it the benefit or make it worse? Yeah, so similar to previous paper, does it help? So that's what we're asking, does it help? Okay, so who is using fintech? We were happy to see that actually female are more likely to use fintech. So I interpret it as that Then fintech helping female with, for female, it's literature saying that access to finance is lower for female because they have to spend more time at home, or sometimes for them difficult to go to the bank, or there are fees, and they're not financial decision maker maybe. So we can see that fintech actually helps more women to participate, more women actually using fintech. So maybe it's because that way they save time. They don't need to go to the bank. Let's say if you're taking care of small children, or even in some countries, you might not feel safe going with money to the bank. So then fintech actually helps. Because, for example, if I want to borrow money from someone and it's quite scary to walk with money, with cash, right? So then it's better to use than fintech. So that saves time, and maybe fees are lower. So the result shows that, yeah, for this is good for inclusivity, how digital technology is helping with inclusivity. So by helping women to use fintech. And also financial literacy is still very important. We see that the score is, the coefficient is significant and positive for most regressions. It means that those who are more financial literacy are more likely to use fintech. Yeah. Okay, then next result. Now, on the dependent variable is performance, yeah, how business performance about closure. So first we wanted to see on the business closure, and we can see that fintech has no significant impact on business closure. But what's important is financial literacy. So fintech is not a substitute for financial literacy. Financial still important to run the family business, and we can see that impact is not significant. It may be because fintech probably can play both positive and negative role, because on one hand it might be easier to borrow money, but on another hand it's also maybe easier to spend money and so on. So that we cannot say that there is a positive impact because we couldn't find significant results. But financial literacy is still important for the business. And then next, other business performance, like, for example, business income, we also looked at, and then we couldn't see consistent result on user fintech impact. There is some significant was in CAREC, some regressions, but not all of them, not consistent. The impact of fintech, we couldn't consistently say, yeah, it's positive. And also for the number of employees, there are more significant results. So here we can see that there is some for number. So those who are using fintech more likely to increase number of employees. So this is more consistent result. And for financial literacy, we still see that it has positive impact, financial literacy. Now, I think it's important how fintech is used. So not only, okay, we use fintech, but how, like, what do you do? Maybe people, maybe they perform very basic things, or they use it extensively, right? We also looked what for fintech is used. So there are 3 reasons why fintech could be used: to raise capital, take loans, so access to finance, make payments to suppliers, and receive payments from customers. So we can see that there is a positive impact on business performance for using fintech for paying to suppliers. Also, yeah, okay. And so for income increase, also access to finance is significant impact. If they can raise capital using fintech, then there is increase in turnover. So I just want to say that these are preliminary results. We are still working. It's not final, still work in progress. And so I would like to conclude and summarize with policy recommendations. So please let me remind you, still preliminary, not conclusive. But first of all, fintech is greatly used in both in ASEAN and CAREC, especially in CAREC region. Like I mentioned, 40% of family businesses using fintech in ASEAN and CAREC, which is great. So from results, we see that female really significant impact. So digitalization, fintech can help with inclusivity by improving financial inclusiveness of female, because literature shows that female are especially suffering from this there is gender gap in financial inclusion, and fintech can improve this financial inclusion of female because they don't have to go to the bank. Also, fintech somewhat, we are still not conclusive, but some things, some business performances fintech can improve. So for example, we saw that positive impact on number of employees, but of course some business performances no impact. So I can say that there is still need for financial literacy, and those who are more financial literacy are more likely to use fintech. So financial literacy is still important, and it's important to increase financial literacy. We noticed that financial literacy score is really low in both ASEAN and CAREC, especially in CAREC, and especially for female financial literacy lower. So governments for policy recommendations can work on improving financial literacy in ASEAN and CAREC, especially with three countries, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and especially for female business owners. And then not from these results, but my impression that yes, why we got this not conclusive result from how fintech affects business performance is because fintech could be used for harm, and could be used for benefit maybe, and it depends how people use it. And so financial literacy, it's important to make fintech work beneficially for the region. It's important to work on financial literacy. That's it from me. Many thanks.
Thanks, Tina. And once again, thanks for keeping time. Let me first invite Professor Zhang for discussions while we gather more questions. There's already one in our chat box, but Professor Xiaobao, he's a chair professor of Guanghua School of Management from Peking University. Once again, thank you very much for joining us as a discussant. Professor Zhang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the conference organized. Thanks, conference organizers, for inviting me to discuss this very interesting paper. Glad to see Dina again online. I think the paper is very interesting. I think the key contribution is that the paper makes use of very unique enterprise survey, primarily collected by ADBI. I know during the COVID, it's very important to get to know the actual situations on the ground. And we all know it's of a great challenge to gather enterprise data, in particular for SME, family business. I really applaud the effort of ADBI. I think the data set is very unique, includes rich information. The main finding is that the literacy matter a lot to both fintech use and also the performance of family business. And as Dina mentioned, the effect is particularly for the self-employed and also women, and particularly for the adoption of digital fintech for women. I have three major comments. The first on the definitions of the two key variables, fintech and financial literacy. Secondly, when drawing conclusions, be careful about the causality and the correlations. The last one is on the differences between Asia and the CAREC countries and the findings. Let me first talk about the definitions. As mentioned by Dina, the literacy has a few components. Right now, it didn't mention the details, just say the definition is available in another paper. It'd be nice to list details of the survey instrument. It's be hard for readers to look for another place for the detailed definition. Though this similar for fintech use, their fintech include many dimensions like online payment, transactions, online banking, etc., AI. So a dummy variable marks the rich contents of the measure, also marks the big differences among the different components of the fintech use. So it would be nice to spell out the details of the definition. The next, I will talk about the causality. As mentioned in the paper, financial literacy is likely endogenous for the following reason. Finally, it probably measured unobserved cognitive skills, which again is associated with fintech use and maybe the performance of the business. The paper uses two instruments. One is the average financial literacy at the district level. Another one is whether a respondent's siblings or parents experienced any financial difficulty before the pandemic. I would argue the two instrument variables are problematic. For the first one, the average financial literacy may capture the general business intelligence in a location, which is likely associated with the adoption of fintech and business performance with outcome variables, which in turn correlated with the error term. So it may not be a good instrument. Secondly, for the second instrument, whether a respondent's siblings or parents encounter financial difficulties, we all know if they face this kind of difficulties, they have to find a way to cope with the shocks, either adjust maybe the adoption of fintech use, or maybe change some of the business operation modes. So in this way, the variable is correlated with error terms. It's not a good instrument. And moreover, if you look at the first stage regression, this variable is not significant for the Carrick subsample. So it didn't even pass the first stage F-test. So my suggestion is probably we should give up these two instruments. Instead, use a more exogenous shock, that is the COVID restrictions, as a instrument. We know different countries subject to the COVID shocks differently at different time. They're quite location and time specific. If you can get those information, it'd be nice to use those information as instrument. In the previous study, like in your own paper, Dina mentioned the more rapid adoption of digital technology after the pandemic. So after pandemic, people are induced to use digital technologies. So we already show in our paper, forthcoming management science, this is a very good instrument. So since you are gathering panel data, even cross-sectional repeat panel is still useful. You can look at more like pseudo panel at the regional level, industry level. And then you can make use of the variations in COVID restriction policies as an instrument variable. In doing so, probably you can draw a stronger causal conclusion. Lastly, it's on the discrepancy in findings between the two subgroups. As you show in the tables, some of the coefficients have opposite signs. They're all both significant, but the different signs. So how do we explain the discrepancy? Why they are so different? What are the underlying reasons? When reader read the result, they were puzzled. So it'd be nice to look at the data a little bit further to at least offer some explanations. Another suggestions on the causality part, since you have rich information on the survey instrument, on the detailed components, so why not in the beginning run some correlation analysis between different components of the fintech use and the financial literacy, see on the any strong correlations between different components, maybe you can learn something. Also can run the analysis for two different subgroups to check whether there are systematic differences or not. So the final comments on the policy implications. You say the financial literacy is very important. As a result, for policymakers, we should strengthen the training of financial literacy. That would be a huge task. It's hard to improve literacy, in particular for adult literacy, not alone for the financial literacy. I haven't seen any successful interventions. So it'll be a big challenge. So a better intervention maybe is to look at during the COVID, when there's shocks, how people with different skills, different financial literacy cope with the shocks, whether they are more skilled in adopting digital technologies or not. Maybe look at the heterogeneity to see whether we can learn from the experience in different regions or in different groups. So right now, I think the policy implication probably are too strong and not supported by the evidence. Overall, I think the paper is very interesting, using rich data set, has very important policy implications, but the paper is in a very preliminary stage. After revisions, I think the paper can find a good outlet. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to read the paper.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Dina, if you have a quick response, please go ahead. We do have 3 questions, which I will invite you to answer online. One around the difference between the city and the rural discrepancies, correlation with digital literacy and fintech use, and further questions around the financial literacy.
Dr. Xiaobao, very many thanks for detailed comments. This is just like instruction for me and all my co-authors. We will just go one by one and just implement what you said. I think it's very clear instructions. And like you said, all your suggestions, some of them I had in my head, but I didn't have time to fix it. But many of them, great ideas, wonderful. So thank you so much for making our job so easy to revise and improve this paper. Yeah, and I see also Dean Sanobi also put in chat, thanks for helpful comments. I agree, totally.
Thank you very much. Dina, you do have time to answer one of the questions. So how about we tackle the first one from Imam, which is asking the fintech impact, whether it's consistent across like Kazakhstan, for example, or is it just happening in big cities like Astana and Almaty?
Yeah, that's interesting question. Yeah, so far we just did, because we have big sample size, we just looked ASEAN CAREG, but yeah, it's interesting to look at also, I think we added rural as control, maybe, I don't remember. So far, I only been in Astana and Almaty. Personally, I haven't been to other places to compare, but we definitely can look using our data, other cities. So thanks for Imam for asking about my country. Yeah, and next question, is it possible to see relationship between digital literacy and fintech? Yeah, so people who are more literate, they are more likely to use fintech. So that's interesting. That's used even for using fintech, you still need financial literacy. Okay, parameters determine. So actually, this is out of the scope for this paper. Why? Because financial literacy is a very, very old topic, very well studied, and my co-author Peter Morgan is great expert. I'm not. So I keep this out of the scope of this paper for financial literacy, because I think this is very studied. But one thing I know that female were found to be like in disadvantage in financial literacy. They're less financial literate. Yeah, and also one more comment from Dr. Xiaobao. He mentioned my policy recommendation help to improve financial literacy of the people by government. It doesn't have to be expensive training, of course, I understand. So we actually I suggested to focus in policy recommendations for financial literacy to give special focus for female and those 3 countries, but also other countries, how they can improve financial literacy. For example, In Singapore, they always put big posters for people, please don't fall to internet scam, and they put some visual examples, pictures, so everyone can understand what's going on. And in Kazakhstan, I also noticed government started to take steps. They put some like printed piece of paper and saying that don't pay via phone, do something like that. So what you should do, what you shouldn't do, so to educate people, because when they have mobile phone, they can transfer money anywhere and receive from anywhere. So this is quite could be dangerous for people to fall into scams. So government can just put paper printed with visual, easy to understand images to educate them.
Professor Zhang, do you have another question?
Yes, you emphasize training on women. But if you look at the data, look at the funding of a paper, women are doing better in adopting fintech.
Yeah, that's my danger.
That's same true in China. So they are, despite their low financial literacy, they are already doing very well. If the funding is true, you should focus on men. So why men are slow in adopting fintech?
I don't say that everyone should adopt fintech because I don't see that fintech actually helps business or not. I couldn't see. I think it could be both harm and help. And I think if fintech, your mobile smartphone, in the hands of financial not literate person, right, less literate person, that could be maybe more harm than benefit. That's my worry, that more female using fintech, and on the other hand they are less financial literate, right? So I think it's important that fintech used with some level of financial literacy.
Thanks, Tina, for that nuanced recommendations. And you did emphasize that disproportionate benefits of using fintech for female entrepreneurs with more household or other unseen responsibility. So I do agree with your recommendations, but with the caveat that digital literacy training, financial literacy training needs to be provided as well. Okay, now it's time for the final paper presentation for the final paper, and I'd like to invite Associate Professor Xu Wang from Jinan University and University of Birmingham Joint Institute from PRC on enhancing food security, digital management, and climate resilient agriculture in PRC. Professor, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure today to make presentation on promoting digitalization for green and inclusive growth in developing Asia and Pacific. I'm Dr. Xu Wang. The title of my presentation is Digital Management and Climate Resilient Agriculture in China. To begin with, I would like to show you the graphical abstract, the outline of my paper, which can be helpful for you to understand my research quickly and easily. This paper presented analytical findings on how digital management enhances agriculture, green and inclusive growth in China. In light of intricate challenge faced by China's agriculture sector, the adoption of digitalization emerged as a crucial approach to facilitate the transformation from conventional agriculture to smart and sustainable practice. The pathway by which digital management have the potential to address over-application of chemical fertilizer and irrigation water, mitigation of carbon emissions, and the challenge of climate change and contribute to environmental sustainability of agriculture have been discussed. The implementation of digital management contribute to both green and social inclusiveness have been completely explored. And this paper also discusses the problematic issues in digital management in agriculture and provide evidence-based policy recommendation for its sustainable development. With reform and opening up of economy, China has undergone a remarkable epoch of economic growth and advancement over the past 4 decades. The rapid development of agriculture has also brought for a series of challenges, and the digitalization transformation of agriculture offers novel solutions to address these issues. In total, there are 8 major problematic issues in China mainly. Firstly, we come to the crop scarcity and national food security. Cropland scarcity cropland constitute an essential natural resource within the realm of agriculture, playing a pivotal role in sustaining human livelihood. Consequently, ensuring national food security has consistently taken precedence as a paramount objective within China's overarching national strategy. Low educational level of rural labor. Based on the data from the third National Agricultural Census, it's evident that the educational attainment among rural labor is notably modest. This discernible deficiency in the educational level of rural labor could potentially exert significant influence on China's ongoing transition from a conventional to modernized agriculture. Population aging. China is experiencing one of the most rapid increases in its aging population. This transformation can be attributed to the combined effect of extending life expectancies and diminishing fertility rate within the country. Notably, the viability of labor-intensive agricultural practice in China appears to be limited in the long run, necessitating a fundamental transformation. The loss of rural from urban area, from urbanization. The rapid growth and globalization of China's domestic economies have significantly speeded the process of urbanization. The outflow of labor from rural regions due to urbanization has also exerted pressure on the shift towards large-scale digital mechanized operations. Rise in rural labor costs. It becomes evident that most monthly incomes for rural laborers has experienced a remarkable surge. This substantial rise in labor expense not only curtails the profitability of agricultural production, but also dampens the enthusiasm of farmers. The scarcity of water. China has an increasingly severe water scarcity issue, primarily magnified in its north regions. It's urgent that enhancing water resource management stands as a formidable enduring task. No-point source pollution from chemical fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer contributes to approximately 50% of the world's food production. Thus, they are essential agricultural inputs and make great contribution to China's national food security. However, in order to pursue the crop yield increases urgently, the overuse of chemical fertilizer is very serious in China. But the overuse of chemical fertilizer does not bring about the crop yield increase simultaneously. Because of rain and heavy irrigation, most proportion of chemical fertilizer will be run off or leached, consequently leading to no-point source pollution and lower fertilizer effect. In response to these circumstances, the Ministry of Agriculture in China introduced the action plans for zero growth in chemical fertilizer usage in 2015, which has yielded remarkable outcomes. However, despite these achievements, China's application of chemical fertilizer in 2020 continues to surpass the global average level, as well as usage in the United States and the European Union. The climate change. Agriculture demonstrates a high degree of sensitivity to weather patterns and climate dynamics. Elevated temperatures curtails the growth span of essential crops, culminating in average reduction in yields. Concurrently, the escalating occurrences of seasonal drought impose severe strain on available water resources allocated for irrigation purpose. In light of the intricate challenge faced by China's agriculture sector, the adoption of digitalization emerging as a crucial approach to facilitate the transformation from conventional agriculture to smart and sustainable practice. Characterized by its foundation in information and knowledge, the profound interdisciplinary aggregation of modern information technology and intelligent methodology within the agriculture has birthed an entirely novel approach to agricultural production. Digital management revolves around information perception, data-driven decision-making, intelligent control system, precise input allocation, and personalized services. This comprehensive integration spans the entirety of the agricultural production process. The composition of digitalization in agriculture is illustrated in the figure. Despite the initial achievement of digital management in agriculture in China, it still faces challenges such as weak innovation capacities in crucial core technologies, high costs of technological research, development, and dissemination, as well as a shortage of versatile talents. These issues has led to a relative slow progressions in the development of smart and digital agriculture. The national level of digitization in agriculture has grown from 18.6% in 2018 to 25.4% in 2021. When broken down to individual agricultural sector, the level of digitization in livestock production stands at 34%, while for facility cultivation, field cultivation, and aquaculture, the levels are 25.3%, 21.8%, and 16.6% respectively. Considering different crop types among them, the level of digitalization are relatively higher for cotton, wheat, and rice at 66.3%, 69.6%, and 37.7% respectively. However, the level of digitization in maize is relatively lower at 26.9%. In recent years, the realm of digital agriculture in China has undergone rapid expansion. The outlook for future development in this sector is exceedingly promising, with a vast expanse of opportunities on the horizon. Now come to the relationship between digitalization with sustainable and environmental friendly practice. First, from chemical fertilizer reductions by digitization. China has established digital soil sensors platform, a national farmland construction comprehensive monitoring and supervision platform, which can provide expert-based specific fertilizer recommendation. The integration of digital technology and soil testing and formulated fertilization can be helpful for chemical fertilizer reduction. Using digital technology such as Internet of Things, cloud computing, and big data, agricultural production and management are carried out. Through remote control, crops can be watered and fertilized smartly. Water saving by digitization. From a national perspective, in recent years, China has formulated guidelines for advancing water saving practice in farmland, develop implementation plans for integrated water and fertilizer management, consistently allocated resources for drought-resistant agriculture demonstration and promotion projects, and facilitate the construction of efficient and water-saving irrigation system. This effort have led to significant achievement in promoting water-saving agriculture in China. From the individual perspective, a kiwi fruit production in Henan province, China, is a typical example. In the past, local farmers used floating irrigation, which led to uneven water distribution in the fields. Later, they switched to sprinkles irrigation, which was prone to root rot and had low efficiency. Now, with digital irrigation, drip irrigation, the progress is simplified and irrigation is uniform, delivering water and nutrients directly to the roots. The key point is that the limited water resources are being fully utilized. Agricultural carbon emission mitigation by digitization. As a modernized agricultural production approach, digitization undoubtedly holds the key to driving carbon reduction in agriculture. In Chengdu City, Sichuan Province, China, under the model of digitization, precise monitoring of soil fertility is achieved through remote sensing technology and a ground and underground data collection system. Firstly, precise fertilization and pesticide application reduce pesticide and fertilizer inputs, resulting in carbon emission reduction. Secondly, energy consumption and emissions are reduced during rice cultivation through saving in agriculture machinery usage. Thirdly, energy consumption and emissions are reduced during grain drying. Digitization models employs a scalable drying method while incorporation precise control of drying temperature and techniques for thermal cycle utilization. This leads to higher drying efficiency and lower energy consumption. Fourthly, energy consumption and emission are reduced during rice transportation. The climate resilience by digitization. Agriculture is one of the most weather-sensitive industries. Since the beginning of 2023, China has experienced frequent occurrences of extreme weather. Facing adverse weather conditions, digital tools often have an exponentially effective impact. The precision agriculture, meteorology, and remote sensing field patrol technology of the agriculture mobile application have recently played a role in Heilongjiang provinces, China. They not only assist farmers in anticipating weather change and seizing optimal farming timing, but also help identify affected land parcels accurately and enable swift resolvative actions in the wake of abnormal weather incident. How the implementation of digitization in agriculture contributes to both green and social inclusiveness. First, promotion of skill from digitization. The goal is to train new generation farmers, enabling them to flexibly employ digitalization and transform farmers into skilled workers in technology. Second, reduction of working intensity from digitization. Utilizing this smart agricultural technology, farmers can remotely monitor crop growth, managing irrigation, apply fertilizer without leaving their premise operations that previously require manual intervention or traditional methods that have been automatic through digitization technology, reducing labor intensity and ensuring production safety. Creation of new job opportunity for unskilled labor for digitization. Apart from the high-quality skilled laborers, digitization can create new job opportunity for unskilled labor. A typical example for rice smart farm in Beijing, China. Rice smart farm requires only one person for daily management without any specialized agriculture skill. From the standpoint of social inclusiveness, digitization holds the potential to empower women and girls, a demography often labeled as unskilled laborers, thus contributing to the advancement of gender equality. Sustainable Development Goals 5. In regions of China that are geographically isolated and suffer from labor shortage, women and girls frequently constitute the primary workforce in agricultural operation. By adopting digitization methodology, notable enhancements in operational efficiency can be achieved. Concurrently dimensioning the working intensity. Consequently, this translates into liberating time and alleviating physical burdens associated with demanding agronomy tasks from women and girls. The digitization also facilitates agricultural industry and business. For example, rural e-commerce and business. The widespread penetration of digital infrastructure in rural areas in China has created conditions for the digitization transformation of agricultural industry. This promotes the enhancement of agricultural industry quality and efficiency, aiding farmers in increasing their income. Finally, also, the digitization facilitates no agricultural employment transition. It addresses information asymmetries and enhances employment opportunity. It generates job opportunity and increases employment position in rural area. The digital management also promotes rural inclusive financial development. Digital finance is reshaping the landscape of rural financial development. Digital finance lowers the threshold for farmers to access loans. Through the widespread application of modern information technology, the accessibility and convenience of rural inclusive financial service continue to improve. While digital agricultural technologies have achieved significant results in promoting high-quality agricultural development, their application faces numerous difficulties and challenges due to the influence from policy implementation, institutional establishment, and government execution. Hence, the evidence-based policy recommendations are provided in the following 6 aspects. The policy recommendation is not only for China, but also can enlighten developing Asia and the Pacific. Firstly, construction of large agricultural database and platform. Secondly, strengthening agricultural technology innovation and promoting the adoption of digital agricultural technology. Thirdly, agricultural digital infrastructure need to be speed up. Fourthly, policy evaluation mechanism should be established. Fifthly, data security should be protected. And finally, formulating a blueprint of digital agriculture development. That's all for my today's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Wang. At this point, I'd like to invite our discussant, Omnarth Gatelna, the senior scientist from Sustainable Impact through Rice-Based Systems of International Rice Research Institute, based in India.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And we can also see your presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Okay, give me a quick second. Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wang. It was a very good presentation, and you have laid out very well all the information that are needed to move on to digitalization of like climate smart agriculture in China. I have some okay, so I have, as I mentioned, you have raised very important concerns on the green and inclusive growth in the context of agriculture and food system in general. You talked about a lot of how the digitalization would help, and especially around like agriculture and agri-food system, including some problems and prospects of digitization in the rural labor, food production and supply and education. You also outlined what opportunities it can create, and the graphical abstract can be a good actually the conceptual framework of the paper, which I am sort of missing. I like the graphical abstract, and there are some issues around like the link of this, how digital management and sustainable and environmental friendly practices are, how they are linked, and it highlights the digital management, how it can lead to climate resilient production regime. And also you have some like policy recommendations based on the evidence you have gathered. However, some of the things I would want you to look at what you think about this. Okay, the paper, like what I see from the paper is like it reads like more different pieces of information without having a storyline or without having a thread line that what really you want to, like, I'm talking from the perspective of the paper and an article. So it just reads, and it lacks a description of what literature says about green and inclusive growth. You haven't mentioned about this, what green growth means and what inclusive growth means, and how are you going to use in this particular paper, basically the operationalization of the concept. And and another important thing I would find is, I mean, in the paper you have, since you have not kind of, it's all about literature review, but you have not framed the research question. How are you going to do that, and what gap or what direction you want to head? It's sort of more the conceptual framing of the paper. That is what I find it lacking. And the third element is, I didn't see the methodological elements of the paper. Like, this looks like a scoping review, but you have not mentioned that. And how did you come up with these findings? Whether you did the scoping review, or the purposive literature review or systematic literature review. I don't think it is a survey you have conducted, because you have not framed the paper like that. If that is the case, I think you need a good section of methodology. If it is the review, what it is like a search keywords you used and how you perform this. Maybe you used a Pika, like a Pico model or something to come up with this idea. So that is another thing I wanted to if you could think of or consider putting a method section somewhere after the introduction. I think that is yes, those are my basic concerns, and it can be a little bit more analytical. Now it reads more like bullet form. Okay, this is what it is, this is what it is, this is what it is. It doesn't really connect the dots. So that is another thing you want to think of. And you have mentioned like the climate smart agriculture and food security would be the digitalization, how digitalization would help improve like China's climate smart agriculture and eventually the food security. But these things are not really coming out. For example, you have not mentioned what green or inclusive growth. I have just tried to put something together for your reference, and also given some resources here if you could think of, and also the food security issue. So what food security is, and what kind of what concept you want to use in terms of food security, and also the resource that you have. So those are the basic concerns I have with the paper that I read. I think that is my last slide. But otherwise it has a great stuff. It has so much information. Just you need some little bit. Maybe you just sit behind and think of how to weave things together and put as a kind of storyline. But main thing is that the conceptual framing of the paper and the methods, what did you use to come up with this paper? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gattola, for yet again very comprehensive comments, and also for references for Professor Wang to consider. Professor Wang, if you have any quick responses to Dr. Gattola, please take it away.
Okay. Many thanks for Doctor for your very valuable comment. I learned a lot. Indeed, some comments you suggest enlighten the idea of how to improve my manuscript. Later, I have written down. I will later have a point-to-point response and then improve a lot. For example, for the literature review part, because originally as specifically for the CSA part, because originally during the proposal submission stage, I'm working for another program for the climate resilient agriculture. So I think about the knowledge and experiences dissemination from place to place. But however, after discussing with my colleagues from agricultural science, the CSA is just part of the problems that in agricultural system in China and in the Asian country. So maybe in this part, I will change the focus from this is part for the whole agricultural production structure, including the climate resilient, but mainly for the long-term food production and the environmental friendly practice. So maybe later I will change the direction from climate resilient to sustainable agricultural production, including the environmental friendly weight. And also from apart from this part and digital management and digital technology, how to elaborate the relationship. This is important because for the other part, many researchers that they propose from digitalization focusing on digital technology, but this technology is the tangible and hard infrastructure. But for the management side, especially for social science and economic science, for intangible digital the arrangement, the regulation, this also play a crucial role for promoting the digitalization. Hence, in that part, as you mentioned, I will focus to improve them and to reorganize. There is no doubt that this is just the preliminary draft for my paper. Later for your suggestion for the methodology, data, and literature review. For the new version, I believe this part will be filled with properly and correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And there is a question from Dr. Albert Park, our chief economist of ADB. So his question is, in China, who pays the cost of digitalization in agriculture, and is it expensive? Does government provide incentives? And what about finance?
Oh, okay. I would like to give a quick answer within 2 minutes. In China, the digitalization, it belongs to the transformation from conventional agriculture to sustainable and smart agriculture. So, but for agriculture, it's mainly just the individual's behavior. So they should be bear by the farmers themselves. But there's no, in fact, it's very expensive. It depends on different circumstances. So mainly as our figures coming from the Ministry of Agriculture, as shown in the description part, is relatively low level for digitalization. Also, the application for digitalization, you also have different level. For example, for high level of digitalization and low level of digitalization, but we do not separate it because due to the span of the paper. So the government, no doubt, provide a lot of incentive to stimulate the farmers to participate with the applying the new technology. It stands as the technology dissemination, because the digitalization indeed solved the problem. As I mentioned, there are 8 problematic issues in China and 6 measurements they can address. About the finance, as I mentioned in the, maybe later I will give very clear definition for the inclusive. With the help of digitalization, the rural finance in agriculture, they can improve a lot with the help of the internet and digital infrastructure. They will provide the specialized funding and loan for the farmer to apply the digitalization for digitized management and technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. I'm sure some of these can be added to the paper, either to make the context more enriching, or make the policy recommendations more concrete. So as the last stage of the session 1, I would like to invite Dr. Subhasis Bera to wrap up the session. Professor Bera is an associate professor of economic and quantitative techniques from International School of Business and Media of Kolkata, India. Professor, thank you very much for making time, and you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I will take 10 minutes. I'll finish it in a much earlier. The initiation was dealing with the digitalization and inclusiveness. Digitalization is a powerful tool to promote inclusiveness by providing access to education, healthcare, financial services. However, there is also a risk that digitalization could then exacerbate existing inequalities. Therefore, to ensure that digitalization is inclusive, it is essential to consider all the needs of all the stakeholders. Therefore, policy framework requires to consider the focus on infrastructure development, then providing the digital services, then fostering digital literacy, and thereafter addressing the digital inequality. This session primarily focused on this digital inequality by considering the remote learning and the fintech use. Basically, this will be part of the financial inclusion and the food security. The first paper presented by Anupradip Kumar Chaudhary, the title was very interesting, that evidence from remote learning, evidence from intra-household comparison from rural India. From the title, I was thinking that the Pradeep will discuss regarding the difference in the use of digital technology by the different members of the same family, and by the members of the different family. And that could have been much more interesting. By anyway, the study is at very early stage, and especially when we talk about the remote learning in a rural area, the two factors that comes into play. One is the economic status, and another is the cultural aspects, because economic status is important because to afford the digital technology, one has to have afford that technology. And the second thing is the cultural aspects, because in Asian countries, in many families, there are gender disparity. So even when there is a lack of, there is not lack of devices, and the more number of members are there in a family, it will be very difficult for them to use and learn and to have access to the communication. This is one aspect. If the project improves that, that will be very interesting. And another important aspect is there we are talking about, when we talk about that in edutech, then their edutech also come out as a more commercial, and edutech mainly focus on the urban area rather than the rural area. When Pradeep has mentioned that he is going to look at the edutech, I was thinking, okay, another important aspect he is focusing on. I hope in the future we will work on that. Remote learning is now will be highly possible if we use AI, because in the rural area people have language barrier and the skill barrier. So if we can use AI to teach the student in their regional language, that will also help. However, the paper is very interesting. I think it's a very early stage, and we will work on it. And Daniel has rightly pointed out that there is no final data, so it would be difficult for you to compare the development rather than measuring the status. The second paper is presented by Dina, and it was an excellent. Dina was dealing with the excellent data set, and 17 countries and Asian and CAREC regions, and the use of fintech 90% in CAREC and Asian and 46%. And rightly, the paper pointed out the access to the capital and access to the transaction, and it is real time, and it is access to the safety. But when Dina has mentioned the safety, another important aspect, when Dina was mentioning safety, then another important aspect that came to my mind is that whether the people they are aware of the cybersecurity risk, data privacy risk, fraud risk, and regulatory risk. Because the finding is also showing that there can be a negative impact of the fintech use in the family business. Probably this could be one of the, this can be a reason, I don't know. I mean, if incorporate all those, probably that will also change the definitions of the financial literacy. This is a very interesting paper. Again, it is at the very early stage. So once I get to read the paper, then probably I will do even more comment. But however, the data set is very extensive, and it is more or less aligned with the previous studies by the Asian Development Bank, World Development Bank, and the University of Singapore. They have come up with the fintech use of the family business, and this is very much aligned with that. And if we, these new aspects, the security aspects, are included, then it will be an excellent study. And the last paper is on the food security. And in this paper, what I got an opportunity to go through this paper, and I realized that the paper is amalgamations of various evidences and various, but as rightly mentioned, that the methodology is mentioned. This is one part. And the second thing is that when we talk about the food security, I have to talk about the production. So we have to talk about the storage. Also, we have to talk about the supply to the market. But this paper is mainly focusing on the production part, and whereas the use of digital technology for the storage and for marketing or supply will be much more interesting, and it will cover the term the food security. Otherwise, it will be just agricultural production. And however, I found that this is also very interesting in a paper. And I think that the workshop we have started, the digitalization and inclusiveness, with these 3 papers, and the tone are set rightly, and we hope that this will continue in our proceeding sections and sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vera, for that excellent wrap up. And I'm sure alongside all the comments from discussants, your summary as well as your reflections will be helpful to the authors in improving and completing the publications. So that wraps up session 1. At this point, I'd like to hand the floor back to Dina.
Thank you very much for coming back. Let's continue next session, continue digitalization and inclusiveness, and will be moderated by our great contributor, Donghyun Park.
Thank you, Dina. So this is module B of session 1, still on digitalization and inclusive development. Each presenter, and there are 3 papers, each presenter will present for 20 minutes, followed by 5 to 7 minutes of discussion, and then a Q&A session. Please type in your questions in the Q&A box, and finally, we will have 10 minutes of wrap-up comments by one of the project evaluators, Professor Willem Smith of Fulbright University in Vietnam. So without further ado, Professor Upalat Porwantasanakul, please begin your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And let me share my screen first. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers to invite me to this event, and I'm very happy to be here today to present my research paper on the topic of the unlocking green and inclusive growth, the nexus of digitalization, formalization, and global value chains. Okay, so from the title of my research, you can see that there are 3 main keywords here. One is the informal sector, and then the second one is the global value chains, and then also the third one, the digitalization. So I would like to spend a few minutes on these 3 keywords before I will jump into this data and methodology part, and then I will conclude this session by my results and also some of the policy discussions. So first of all, why do we care about this informal economy? So according to the statistic, like in Asia, small and medium enterprises or SMEs represent over 97% of the number of businesses, of which predominantly belong to the informal sector. And according to International Finance Corporation in 2020, they estimate that 80 to 90% of SMEs are concentrated in the informal sector. So what are the issues here? So even though the informal sector is considered one of the economic driving forces for developing economies, especially in the early stage of their development, the prevalence of informal enterprises and the informal sector in general possibly hinders long-run economic growth due to insufficient aggregate productivity and inefficient resource allocation. Therefore, the size of the informal sector is expected to shrink along with the development of the formal sector and the overall economy. But the problem is that the recent statistics tell a different story. So informal enterprises are prevalent in urban and rural areas of both developing and developed economies. So next is about the global value chains. Why do GVCs matter? So the rapid development of global value chains, or GVCs, introduce opportunities and challenges to informal enterprises. So GVC participation can benefit informal enterprises, including access to financial resources, capabilities and competitiveness enhancement, market expansion, and also product quality improvement. But the problem is that despite all the benefits, the informal sector remains underrepresented in the global value chains. And informality is one of the critical constraints preventing enterprises from participating. So the next key term is digitalization. So why does digitalization matter? So with the ongoing industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, digital technologies have become significant for industrial and economic development as never before. Through the reduction of compliance costs and productivity enhances, the digitalization of enterprises may facilitate the transition of informal enterprises to the formal sector. So what are the problems here? So although the importance of digitalization, formalization, and global value chains has been recognized widely, only a handful of previous studies examined the impact of digitalization on enterprise formalization. And moreover, common notions regarding positive effect of formalization on GVC participation have been made without sufficient empirical support. So that's why I would like to examine the nexus of these three key terms in this paper. So basically, this is the conceptual framework. So I just hypothesize that if we have this digitalization, then this can help like firms or enterprises in the formal sector to become or to be able to enter the formal sector. And then if they become like formal enterprises, then they will be able to participate in the global value chains, and this can lead to the economic and environmental and social development as a whole. So what is the connection with environmental implications? Like I put this slide and the next one because I got comments from the reviewers last time, like that they asked me to link my topic to the environmental and social like implications. So that's why I put some, I increase or I add this section into my paper. So formalization is aligned with positive environmental outcomes, as formalized businesses tend to comply with environmental regulations more diligently, reducing pollution and improving adherence to sustainability standards. On the GVC front, participation introduces a mix of challenges and opportunities. So on the one hand, long-distance transportation within global value chains may contribute to increased greenhouse gas emissions. But on the other hand, participating firms are concurrently incentivized to adopt sustainable practices to meet global standards. Furthermore, GVC participation is associated with resource use efficiency as enterprises optimize production processes, reducing waste and more efficient resource utilization. And in terms of social implications, so formalization is associated with job security and fair wages. GVC participation is linked to job creation, skill development, and also economic diversification. So this understanding emphasizes the need for tailored policies that harness the positive aspects of formalization and GVC participation while mitigating potential negative externalities, therefore paving the way for sustainable and inclusive economic development. So this is just to emphasize my research questions. There are two research questions here. One, I would like to examine the relationship between digitalization and formality, and the second one is the relationship between formality and global value chains. And these are my research significance. First, achieving a greater understanding of the role of digital technologies and formalization in facilitating GVC participation, which remains largely unknown. Second, leveraging unexplored level data to account for critical heterogeneity in digitalization and formalization. And last but not least, deriving policy implications from the findings, helping firms efficiently and effectively leverage the benefits of digitalization and formalization and promoting sustainable and inclusive growth in a larger context. So next, I would like to jump to the data and methodology of my research. So basically, this paper used the firm level analysis with probit and tobit models, utilizing pooled cross-sectional data from the World Bank's enterprise surveys, including 56,000 firms from 116 countries, covering 2007 to 2019. This paper also constructs two indicators of GVC participation. One is the GVC participation dummy, which is just to indicate whether firm participate in GVC or not. And the second one is GVC participation index, which show the level of or the degree of the GVC participation. And both of the indicators focus on the backward participation. So this can be one of caveats of my study because we don't have data for the forward participation. And these are the models that I use for estimation. The first one is just to examine the relationship between digitalization and formalization. And I also control for country, industry, and also time fixed effects. And the second one and the third one is just looking for the relationship between formalization and GVC participation. The second model shows the probability, and the third one shows the degree of the GVC participation. Okay, so the first model examine the relationship between digitalization and formalization. So basically, the variables such as email, website, and digitalization as a whole show a statistically significant positive effect on formalization. So this might be able to explain by this, as digital technologies such as emails and websites may help informal enterprises reduce compliance costs and enhance productivity. Enterprises with digitalization tend to have a higher probability of being formalized. And in this model, we didn't found any relationship between GVC participation and formalization. So this will show you that there is no like inverse causality in the next model. And the next one, labor productivity and firm size are statistically significant and positively affect formalization. So let's move to the second and the third models, which examine the relationship between formalization and GVC participation. So formalization has a statistically significant positive relationship with GVC participation. So the findings are consistent with the existing studies positing that through formalization, enterprises can upgrade their capabilities to meet international standards and requirements. And digitalization also play a vital role in promoting global value chain participation and the level of GVC participation. For other control variables, they are very consistent with the existing studies, such as like positive relationship between labor productivity and GVC participation and so on. So for the policy discussion, the findings underscore the transformative potential of embracing digital technologies in fostering enterprise formalization. Importantly, the results reveal a reciprocal relationship, indicating that both digitalization and formalization act as mutually reinforcing factors, propelling enterprises towards greater engagement in GBCs and elevating the depth of their participation in these chains. So this implies that these digitalization efforts can serve as a catalyst for concurrent advancement in formalization and GBC participation. So to facilitate the transition of informal enterprises to formal sector, policymakers may initially offer or guarantee enterprises to access to basic digital technology or digital applications, or enabling digital infrastructure and environment, or digital know-how or digital literacy. And adopting more advanced digital technology may accelerate the formalization process among enterprises. Therefore, the development of digital infrastructure and environment should also consider the compatibility with future digital innovation and technology. So even though the effects of labor productivity are weaker than those of digitalization in our estimation models, upgrading labor productivity can be considered as one of the practical policy options to promote formalization and GBC participation. So in conclusion, this study explored the nexus of digitalization, formalization, and GBC participation. By utilizing probit and TOBIT estimations with cross-sectional firms level data, the findings reveal that enterprises adopting digital connectivity, such as email or website technologies, are more likely to operate formally and participate in global value chains. Formalizations not only facilitates GBC participation, but also deepens such engagement, underscoring the pivotal role of digitalization and formalization in enabling meaningful GBC involvement. And the priority should be given to policy measures that enhance enterprise basic digitalizations, as they are cost-effective and can concurrently promote enterprise formalization and GBC participation. And this is come to the last slide of mine. We also acknowledge the possible endogeneity issue like that we might not be able to control due to the data limitation, particularly in the relationship between digitalization and formalization. However, this study may serve as an essential starting point for more comprehensive investigations. So the identified limitations, particularly the lack of comprehensive data on digitalization, formalization, and GBC participation, highlight the need for future research and data improvement. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Mishra,
Oh, yeah,
Ruchi,
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So discussion will be provided by Dr. Ruchi Mishra. Thank you so much.
Just a minute. Hello, everyone. Thank you for providing me this opportunity to review this paper. So, having reviewed this paper, I'm really excited to engage in a thoughtful conversation about this topic, that is digitalization, formalization, and global value chains. So the flow of my presentation would be like this. We'll start with the overview of this paper, general observation, and then we'll discuss the areas of improvement related to each of the section of this manuscript. So the objective is to examine the impact of digitalization on formalization and to assess the effect of formalization on global value chain participation at the firm level. Author has used a cross-sectional data of 116 countries and total number of firms that author has considered is more than 56,000, sorry, from 2007 to 2019 and applied ProVit and TOVIT in estimations. The findings suggest that digitalization facilitates enterprises in the process of formalization, while formalization further supports enterprises to participate in the GVC. If we talk about the major contribution of this paper, it develops a greater understanding of the role of the digital technology and formalization in facilitating JVC participation. It operates at firm level on a global scale and helps firms in efficiently and effectively leverage benefits of digitalization and formalization for sustainable and inclusive growth. So when I talk about this general observation, the strength of the papers includes it deals with a very novel and contemporary issues. The integration of digitalization and formalization is a relatively new and evolving area of studies. As digital technology rapidly transforming the business processes, understanding how this technology influences the formalization of business operation becomes crucial. Examining the intersection between digitalization and formalization provides insight to or resist to the formalization brought by the digital technology. If we talk about the second part of this studies, that basically second research question, in literature, both formalization and global value chain participation has been discussed, but majority of the studies have dealt with these topics independently. So bringing both these topics in a single study is a unique thing that this study does. It also helps in bridging the gap between the internal organization structure, that is formalization, and external market dynamics, that is global value chain participation. The methodology used by the author is quite rigorous because it deals with the large data set. Author has used more than 56,000 firms in this analysis, so that is quite exhaustive. Large data set covering a large sample size also overcome the several issues related to sample, like it helps in improving the generalizability. So issues related to limited generalizability is not there. Second is related to statistical power related issue has also been resolved since the sample size is huge. And then sample selection bias is also not there because of the application of the large data set. Author has used well-suited data analysis technique, which is quite appropriate for addressing the research questions. Quality of communication is also good. Being a first-time reader of this manuscript, I was able to understand majority of the things that authors tried to convey. Since every study has a scope of improvement, this study also has some areas where author need to work upon. So research gaps is basically something that author needs to provide in much more detail. Rationale of the study is also something that authors have to provide strongly. More systematic literature review needs to be done. And then inclusion of the discussion section and the recent references that is there, we'll discuss in detail, and restructuring of the certain section of the manuscript that is required. So when we talk about the introduction section, since time is a constraint, so I quickly summarize. First is that the first paragraph of this manuscript need to be restructured because it majorly start with the discussion with the brief definition of the informal economy and the definition of the informal enterprises. Ideally, the first paragraph of the manuscript should talk about the brief overview of this topic. Then it should talk about that how these concepts are interlinked. So more industry-specific example needs to be included in the introduction section. Research gap should also be strengthened, and from the research gap itself, niche should come. Although it is there in the study, but it should be more prominent. When we talk about the literature review part, review methodology is completely missing. It is not mentioned that how author has done the literature review part, what was the major database that they have searched, keyword selection criteria, inclusion and exclusion criteria are largely missing. So that should be there.
Sorry, Professor Mishra, but can you speed up a little? You're out of time.
Sure.
Thank you.
So that is that is something which is missing. Second is that informal enterprises, in literature review, the section informal enterprises, characteristics, causes, and cost of informality. That is also need to be shortened. Author has expanded this section. So that need to be more concise, and more recent study should be included in a tabular form, right? The role of digitalization and its mechanism. Author has done this work, but more recent references needs to be included, and the literature review section should be more in an analytical nature. It should be analytical rather than the descriptive. Last paragraph related to literature review should also summarize the key findings, but it should not be written in a bullet form, right? It should summarize in 2-3 lines, and then the existing gap should be reflected, which is not there. When we talk about the methodology part, since again I am summarizing, detailed review is there in the slide also, and I'll share the doc file also. It is not clear that why author has used this method of data analysis, Probit and Tobit estimation. There are other methods also. So author need to write in manuscript that why this method of data analysis is better compared to the other method of data analysis. That should be there. Author can also introduce mediating or moderating variable in the research framework. The definition of digitalization is not very clear to me. If author has adopted this term from
Sorry, Professor Mishra, can you wrap up in 2 minutes, please? Thank you.
Yes, within 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you can share the PowerPoint with the author, but please wrap up in 2 minutes.
So that variable digitalization should be, defined from where author has taken this term digitalization, because in my view, digitalization and digitalization both are different. So that should be stated clearly. Empirical results section is fine. The only changes that you need to do is that there should be a section on result and discussion, and policy discussion should be refined, because there are policy implications that are written in policy discussion. So there should be a separate section on implications, and within that you can write theoretical implications, managerial implication, and policy implications. And when we talk about the conclusion section is fine, but rearrangement is needed because academic style of writing is missing. In future research directions, you can provide the limitation associated with including this moderating and mediating variables, novel method of data analysis, like nowadays machine learning techniques authors are using. And then comparative studies, there is scope of doing comparative study also. That should be there in the future research direction. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. These are some recent references that you can go through while making changes in your manuscript. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. And I'm extremely sorry for that, time that extra time that I took.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. And thank you, Professor Uppalat of Waseda University for a very nice, strong paper. So could you take 1 or 2 minutes to respond, Professor Uppalat?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for all the comments, and I think they are very helpful. If possible, I would like to receive this presentation so that I can revise my manuscript point by point according to your comments. I really love all these detailed comments, so I know like what exactly that I have to improve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Upalat and Mishra. Okay, now we go to the next paper because there are no comments in the Q&A section. Well, there was one. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe you can just briefly respond. How do you define formalization, Professor Upalat?
Yes, I already respond to that.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, let's move to the next paper now. The next paper is by Professor Ying Chen of Yunnan University in the PRC. Does digitalization alleviate rural energy poverty? 20 minutes, Professor Ying Chen. Go ahead.
Okay.
Professor Ying Chen, you
have can you see
next Professor Ying Chen, you have 20 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Thank you. It's my honor to have the opportunity to participate in the virtual workshop to share our research, the topic about the digitalization and the rural energy poverty. In the first stage of this workshop, we submit our topic is about the digitalization and the urban rural gap, and then we we use this specific topic to discuss or continue research for this topic. Now, today my topic is from these 5 aspects to discuss. Firstly, why we focus on this topic. According to the tracking SDG 7, the energy in 2022, the Energy Progress Report shows that 733 million people have no access to electricity. 2.4 billion people cook on fuel, which are harm to health and the environment, which means energy poverty is still a world concerned issue need to pay attention and tackle it. And then, based on the 2022 World Energy Investment Report shows that in developing countries with two-thirds population and with 1/5 clean energy investment, which means the clean energy process in the developing countries still lag behind. And then the World Bank research also showed that developing countries are falling into the energy poverty trap, which makes them caught in an endless cycle of energy poverty and hard to develop. In spite, however, in China, in 2015, the rural energy poverty, the rural energy access to electricity has popular. However, there are still some problems should be to discuss in the context of the energy poverty issue in developing countries. How to leverage digitalization methods to assist in resolving energy poverty has become a focus point of concern for various developing countries. Taking the example of the largest developing country, China still faces challenges in energy poverty, especially in rural areas. So when the rural poverty trap and the digitalization, these two problems hold together. What will be happen? We want to say in this topic we have some contribution for this topic. The first is that we redefine the energy poverty as highly dependent on non-clean energy. Non-clean energy, difficult to afford clean energy. And then our study, we think they further discuss energy poverty and digitalization. We give the direct effect, mechanism effect, peer effect, and heterogeneity. Finally, our research also explore a new path of eliminating rural household energy poverty from the digitalization perspective. In our analysis, we find that digital village construction can positively elevate rural household energy poverty through strengthening wealth and accelerating the ideology transforming of rural households. Digital village can elevate rural household energy poverty. And considering the peer effect, the elevation effect of the digital village on rural household energy poverty is still established. And we also find that the rural households with younger, higher education and are located in central areas benefit more from the digital dividends. And finally, we find that the digital economy play a more crucial role in easing rural house energy poverty. Okay, now we turn to explore how we find or how we develop this research. Firstly, we use the digital village construction to discuss the standardized effects on the energy poverty standardized effects. Firstly, we can see from this graph shows that the digital village in the different region has a different level. We classify the 4 groups is a low value, high value, middle value, low value 4 groups. From this figure, we can see that the region with high digital village development index are mainly concentrated in the eastern areas, and then the central areas, and the lowest is in western areas in China. This side effects is similar to the other aspects of the China about the regional difference. And then we use the energy poverty gap to evaluate the regional difference. We can see from this, we use the EP1, EP2, and the EP3 to calculate the energy poverty, and combine with the digital village development. We can see from this slides there may be correlation between the China's digital village development and rural household energy poverty. Our research, we use the data and the variable is from the dependent variable is from From the index of digital rural county, under the independent variable, we use the energy poverty index. We calculate from the China Family Panel statistic from the Peking University. And the control variable is the county level from the Chinese Statistic Yearbook in 2020. And other control variable is from the China Family Panel Statistic Survey is a family household head level. Under the data process, we matching digital village data sets with to the CFPS 2020, and keep the sample is list the household his age range from 18 to 80. Okay, that's the data and variable. And based on this variable, we can get the and we can do the value do the measure of the dependent variable and statistic descriptive. We can see this table shows that we, based on the previous research, further concises the energy poverty from three aspects. The first one is the energy using level. We can use the label EP1, and the second is the energy using cost. We can use the label EP2, and the final is multi-dimensional. We use label EP3. EP3 is a combined EP1 with the EP2 hold together to get the EP3. This EP3 is coincide the energy using and the energy costing at the same time simultaneously. And then we can construct this model. Like this topic is divided into following the parts. Firstly, the baseline model. In this model we consider the digital village as a key variable, and the explainer dependent variable is energy poverty. And then we developed our model like this. We consider the mechanism effect with two effects. One is the environment awareness, and another is a family income. Is maybe in this model we consider the wealth level. And the final, we also consider the peer effect model to discuss this topic. Now we have the baseline model. We can say, yeah, here from the this is a baseline model result. From this model, we can see that the this model shows that the digital village has a positive effect for elevate the energy poverty. This three kinds method to evaluate the energy poverty also shows the significance in fact. In addition, we discuss the some heterogeneity effect. The first is the geographic location heterogeneity results. From this from this nice figure 9, we can see digital village contribute most to the improvement of rural household energy using level. Energy affordability and the reduction of comprehensive energy poverty than that of the eastern and the western region. Especially in this figure, we can see. We can see the western region does not significance. Secondly, we also discuss the individual characteristic heterogeneity results. From this figure, we can see that there is a digital divide between different age education level and digital access groups, which presents higher energy poverty and elevation effect on younger higher education and digital access group. And finally, we also discuss the dimensional effect in this figure. From comparing the coefficients, it can be observed that under the digital village construction, digital economy development contributes greatest to rural household energy poverty reduction. Based on this analysis, we also do the further analyze for discuss the mechanism effect. Firstly, we discuss the environmental awareness effect. From this figure, we can see that the digital village promotes the environmental awareness of rural household, thus leading to the probability of energy poverty decreasing. Second, we also discuss the family income effect. From this table, we can see that shows the proves the digital village promotes the rural household income, that's leading to rural household energy poverty alleviation. And then finally, we discuss the peer effect. From this slides, we can see that the digital village alleviated the rural household energy poverty. In the peer effect, this if the alleviation effect is also established. Okay. Now, finally, we can give us this conclusion that digital village improves energy using level, lowers the energy using cost, and alleviate comprehensive rural household energy poverty. The effect of the digital village on rural household energy poverty through wealth and idle knowledge might be among the potential mechanism. Benefit of the digital village on rural household energy poverty are more prominent in younger higher education level digital access groups. The rural household energy poverty alleviation benefits most through the digital economy in the process of digital village development. All of this is our research, our preliminary research results for this topic. We are still continues to processing our research furtherly, such as we are considering introduce digital literacy and human capital effects. Finally, we give some policy in roughly policy implication. The first is the digital promote digital village construction, specifically to reduce energy poverty, adopt local resource advantage and accelerate digital economic development, improve the digital inclusion of the elderly, lower education and non-digital access groups. Finally, the policy implication is that strengthen the wealth and environmental awareness of rural households through digitalization. That's all for my presentation, our topics. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Ying Chen, for a nice analytically strong paper. Our discussant is Professor Jong-Seok Kim from Seoul National University. Professor Kim, you have 5 to 7 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, can you see the my PPT?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to give comments on this excellent paper presented by Professor Ying Chen. First, the summary of the paper is that the study finds that digital village construction can positively alleviate rural household energy poverty and provides evidence for the effect mechanism. And the study uses a cross-sectional data set of 2,843 rural counties in China to investigate the effect of digital village construction on rural household energy poverty. The study employs the ordered probit model and the instrumental variable or probit model to estimate the effect of digital village construction on rural household energy poverty. The strength of this paper is that it redefines energy poverty as highly dependent on non-clean energy, difficult to afford clean energy, which can better explain the current situation of rural household energy poverty in China. The study contributes to enriching the existing literature on energy poverty and digitalization. The study provides evidence for the effect of digital village construction on rural household energy poverty and offers policy implications for other developing countries. The weakness of the paper is that the study uses a cross-sectional data set, which may limit the ability to establish causal relationship between digital village construction and rural household energy poverty. And the study does not provide a detailed explanation of the selection of control variables in the regression analysis, which may affect the validity of the results. In detail, let me first give comments about this data and variables. First, about the dependent variable. The EP1 is an indicator of energy poverty where this value is equal to 1 if non-clean fuels like firewood and coal are used for cooking. And it is 0 if clean fuels are used for cooking. One weakness of this variable is that it may not capture all aspects of energy poverty, for example, the quality of energy services, such as reliability or safety. EP2 is another indicator of energy poverty, where EP2 is equal to 1 if EP1 is equal to 1 and household total income is below the minimum level. And this is equal to 0 when the energy using fee to total income ratio is less than 10%. This means that the lower is the energy expenditure, the higher is the probability of being energy poor. However, I think that the poor households tend to use higher proportion of their income for energy. So I would think that this must be equal to 1 if it is greater than 10% of their total income. As it was very difficult to understand fully your variables, I express that in Excel file like this. As for the EP3, I don't have any problem because it reclassified the EP1 equal to 0 into 2. That is in more detailed way, disaggregate this one. But about the EP2, actually, it define this EP1 and EP0. Therefore, some of this EP1 equal to 0, it is redefined as equal to 1. So EP2 moves away from the concept of energy poverty by including income that is not directly related to energy poverty. About the independent variable is digitalization of the villages measured by index of digital rural county. However, as the paper mentions, there is a serious indigeneity problem between digitalization and energy poverty, as the two are the consequence of infrastructure development. The instrumental variable, the study uses topographic relief as instrument variable, suggesting that areas with the greater topographic relief tend to have lower development levels of digital villages due to difficulties in network infrastructure construction. Another assumption is that the topographic relief is not correlated with rural energy poverty. However, I would expect that greater topographic relief would lead to higher use of non-clean energy, as topographic relief is related to infrastructure development of the region. In policy implications, the mechanism through which the digitalization leads to lower energy poverty are wealth effect and ideology effect. The wealth effect refers to the impact of digitalization on the income and wealth of rural households. The ideology effect refers to the impact of digitalization on the attitudes and the beliefs of rural households toward energy use. However, the mechanism and causality are confusing because the wealth effect is, in some way, is already included in the dependent variable EP2. EP2 is equal to 1 if EP1 is equal to 1 and the household total income is below the medium level. This means that the income is reflected in the dependent variable as well as in the dependent variable. About the ideology effect, it is very similar to sensitization and can be strengthened through education than from digitalization, especially in the case of remote areas. Thank you very much anyway. It was a very interesting paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kim, for the concrete and very constructive comments. Professor Ying Chen, can you respond to Professor Kim in 3 minutes? 3 minutes,
okay.
Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your recommendation and especially for the details to how to value measure the energy poverty to help us to improve our analysis. Of course, the instrument variable or instrument variable construct is a problem confused us long times. We want to still to find a more better instrument variable to solve the this problem. And finally, the endogenously problem in our research is still a problem we need to processing. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much. Okay, I that's all my response. Okay. Okay.
Professor Ying Chen, could you repeat what you just said? Because we had some audio problems, so we couldn't hear you very clearly. Just the last few things you said. Thank you.
The last one or the three response.
The last one. The last
Okay.
one.
The last one is about the coreality problem is also confused us. We also considered some we also considered to find the way to solve it. Firstly, we are expand the data sets from cross-section data sets to the panel data sets to discuss to elevate the endogeneity problem. This is the first way, and the second, we want to find the policy interview to elevate this problem, to find the coality, the relationship between this between the digital village and the energy poverty in rural area of China. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Wu Yu and Professor Kim.
Thank you.
Since there are no questions from the audience, let's move to the next presentation by Professor Yu Wu of SWFE in Chengdu, China. He will be talking about digitalization and household income. Professor Yu, you have 20 minutes. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yu Wu. I come from Southwestern University of Finance and Economics.
Sorry, Professor Yu, can you share your full screen? Full screen, please.
I share my. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can also see your next slide. Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay. I come from Southwestern University of Finance and Economics. My topic today is about ICT development and income equality, evidence from households. This paper is cooperated with my co-author Christine. So, first I give an introduction to this paper's motivation. It's well known that income equality is a persistent phenomenon and a fundamental issue of concern, and is prevalent in both developing and developed countries. In the picture, according to the 2022 World Inequality Report released by the World Inequality Level, that reaches 1% of global population takes 52% of global income, whilst the poorest half earns only 8.5% of global income. And so the income equality in the world is serious, and rising income equality is also seen in Asian countries, though income level has increased with rapid economic growth and poverty reduction. With the increasing penetration of digital technology in residence life, digitalization has been embraced by government for its potential in reducing income equality. On the one hand, the digitalization can break geographic limits of opportunities into new business and easy access to finance, and enhance accessibility to information, goods, and services to reach less developed regions and vulnerable groups with limited connectivity. On the other hand, The lack of digital devices or digital literacy may limit people from enjoying the digital dividend, which may increase the gap between groups. So the influence of digitalization on income inequality may be controversial. On the bright side, digital technologies can promote economic growth and offer opportunities to vulnerable groups, thus increasing household income and also narrowing income gaps. On the negative side, opportunities brought by digital technologies may not be equally accessible to all vulnerable groups, leading to significant digital divide that deteriorates income equality. In this paper, we examine the impact of digitalization on development of a city where people live in, on the income equality at the community and the household level in China, using the macro household and community level survey data from China Household Finance Survey. Why we chose China's data to analyze this topic in our paper? First, China offers a good variety of digitalization development levels across the economy, offering good sample to show how different development status of digitalization may affect income gaps. Second, there remains significant inequality in income distribution across China. According to data released by NBS of China, China's Gini coefficient rose from 0.28 in 1981 to 0.47 in 2022, exceeding the international warning line by 0.4 and higher than the global average, despite of increase in income levels. In this paper, we construct a measure to describe digitalization development in levels. That is the ICT development index at the city level. The index captures three aspects: the usage of ICT, the adoption of digital solutions, and the numbers of population enrolled in ICT industries. We use the principal component analysis. In this paper, our main finding is shown below. Firstly, ICT development of city where households live in has a significant and negative impact on income equality at both community and household level. Secondly, the impact is more pronounced in less developed areas and across households with low education levels. Thirdly, further investigations show that digitalization narrow income gap by promoting income levels, especially for low income groups. Lastly, we also show that digitalization can boost household income by increasing employment and investment opportunities, promoting income from wages and financial market participation. The contribution of this study. First, this paper adds to extend research with a measure of digitalization that captures more comprehensive information in digitalization. Second, this paper provides consistent and robust empirical evidence on the mitigation effect of digitalization at both community level and household level. Lastly, this study lends support to the inclusiveness of digitalization from the perspective of income inequality in less developed regions and less educated groups, as well as unveil the possible working channels of this effect. Empirical setup is reported in this section. The data we use in this paper is from China Household Finance Survey in 2013 to 2019. The China Household Finance Survey collected almost 30,000 to 40,000 samples in every round. There are 4 rounds we use in this paper. The survey collects detailed information on household demographic information, asset and liability, income and consumption, and collects detailed information on community level. The key dependent variable in this paper is income equality. In this paper, we use 2 indicators to measure the income equality. The first one is Gini coefficient, which is at the community level. The other one is Kakavani index, which is at the household level. And Kakavani index reflects household relative income deprivation in a community. And the specific definition is in equation 1. equation 1, we divide the sample household by communities where the household reside, and then compare each household to other households with higher income in the same community. And when we can construct the income equality index at a community level, because the households in the China Household Finance Survey are randomly selected in the community. The key dependent variable, the key independent variable is digitalization. In this paper, we use the development of information and communication technology to measure digitalization. In details, we use the collected 7 ICT indicators to construct a comprehensive ICT development index at the city level using factor analysis method. These 7 ICT indicators contain internet users, mobile telephones, subscribers, and telecommunication service, patent license in 5 generation industry, digitalization and related enterprises, digital inclusive finance, and computer industry practitioner ratio. The model using this paper is fixed effect model. In equation 2, I represents the single community or household, C represents the city household live in, and the T represents the year. Y denotes the K dependent variable, the Gini coefficient or Kakavani index. Index is the K dependent variable represented by ICT and development index in city level with 1 period lag. Vector X is a series of control variables, and phi represents the fixed year fixed effect. Theta represents the community or household fixed effect. The descriptive statistic of mean variables is reported in this table. At the community level, we control average schooling year within the community population and the numbers of banks in the community. At the household level, we control household head age, schooling years, and marital status. And the household size, and children ratio, elder ratio, and healthy ratio. In both levels, we also control macro conditions such as per capita GDP in province and the minimum wage in the city. In this section, the empirical results are reported. First is baseline results. In column 1, the dependent variable is community in level Gini coefficient. In column 2, the dependent variable is Kakavani index at the household level. The results show that the coefficients of ICT index are relatively and significant at 1% level. So when a city has more advanced ICT development levels, the income quality in community or household level are lower. Considering the potential endogenous issues, we use instrument variable to solve this problem. We use the average geographical distance between the city household live-in and the digital centers. Shenzhen and Hangzhou, 2 digital pioneer cities, I chose the digital centers in this table. But we know that Tencent, which operates WeChat, is in Shenzhen, and Alibaba, which operates Alipay, is in Hangzhou. And to ensure that time variance of this instrument variable, we multiply average distance with the Phoenix Semiconductor Sector Index in the US. The average distance and the SOX are both exogenous with local household income. And in column 1 and column 3, the coefficients of instrument variable are significant at 1% level. And the F statistic in both columns are more than 10. So the instrument variable we choose in this paper is suitable to our model. And in column 2 and 4, the coefficients of ICT development index are negative and significant, which are consistent with our baseline results. It is worth noting that the ICT development may have heterogeneous impact on income quality in household with different characteristics. We classify household into different groups and explore which types are affected more by ICT development. In this table, we classify samples by regional characteristic. In panel A, the dependent variable is Gini coefficient. In panel B, the dependent variable is Kakavani index. The results show that the coefficients are negative and significant in central western region and low developed region. So the impact of ICT development on income equality is more pronounced in less developed and relative poor areas. In this table, we also classify sample by household average labor education years. The results show that the coefficient of ICT development on the Kakavani index is more pronounced in households with low education. We also use quantile regression to analyze the impact of ICT development on household income. In panel A, the dependent variable is household total income. In panel B, the dependent variable is household income per capita. The results show that with the household income increasing, the positive impact of ICT index is gradually weakening. So ICT development can increase income more for low-income group. That is, on the other perspective, to prove ICT development can reduce income equality. We also estimate the heterogeneous impact of ICT development on household income. The result in the tables also show that the impact of ICT development on household income mainly work in low developed region and vulnerable groups. To ensure that results consolidate, we imply a series of robustness checks. Firstly, we include a provincial year fixed effect to replace macro and control variables. Secondly, we replace ICT development index from previous period in the baseline with the ICT development in the current period. Thirdly, we replace the ICT development index with a county level e-commerce index, which is calculated by Alibaba's data. And lastly, we exclude households that are suffering from major events in recent 5 years. All the coefficients of ICT index remain significantly negative for Gini coefficient and Kakavani index, and positive in household income, which are also consistent with the finding stated earlier. Furthermore, we attempt to analyze the possible mechanism in how ICT development affects income equality. Firstly, we analyze the ICT development on the main categories of household income, including wage income, business income, and investment income. The results show that the ICT development is significantly and positively related to household wage income and investment income. If ICT development can increase household wage income, it may affect the labor employment. So we analyze the impact of ICT development on employment at both community and household level. In this table, the dependent variable is a community employment rate. The results show that the ICT development can increase community employment rate in whole sample and the central western region. In this table, the dependent variable is individual labor force participation. The results also show that ICT development can promote labor force and participation in whole sample, and the effect is more in low developed region and vulnerable groups. In addition, we also test the impact of ICT development on individual wage level. The coefficient of ICT index is not significant, so the ICT development may affect household wage income primarily through promoting employment. We also test the investment mechanism. In this table, the dependent variable is household financial market participation, which is a dummy variable. if a household holds any of the assets in stock, funds and bonds and financing products, the derivatives and non-MB assets or gold equals 1 or was 0. The results show that the ICT development can promote household financial market participation. We also classify household financial market into low risk financial market and high risk financial market. The results are also consistent with this table. So in this paper, we use micro household survey data to analyze the impact of ICT development on income equality. We find that the development of ICT can reduce income inequality, and the effect of ICT development on income equality reduction is pronounced more in low developed region and low education group. So our finding imply that digitalization promotes the welfare of households reside in less developed areas and households with low education levels. Developing ICT in less development areas help reduce income equality and boost the inclusiveness. Policymakers in less developed economies may strengthen ICT development, especially in less developed and remote areas, to gain more social benefits. Governments can also invest in digital-related job training and financial literacy to help vulnerable households to ride the wave of digitalization and increase income. This study provides micro-level evidence and insights for policymakers to speed up digitalization and promote income of vulnerable groups, as well as narrow income inequality. And that is the report of our paper. And thanks for listening. And thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Yu, for a very strong paper. So the discussion for this paper is Professor Semi Yoon from Seoul National University. Professor Yoon, you have 5 to 7 minutes. Please go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can stop sharing screen, I would like to. All right. Great. Thank you for inviting me to today's workshop and giving me the opportunity to respond to Professor Wu's paper. So this paper, I think, just changed the title. So I think it's ICT Development and Income Inequality, where it takes us back to China, as we saw with the previous presentation on the energy poverty. Here we are looking into household level data from China Household Finance Survey that was conducted for 2013, 15, 17, and 19. So authors pay close attention to the recent trends that the Gini coefficient has been rising in China above the global average. And meanwhile, we also know that the digital economy has also been growing. So authors look at the relationship between digitalization and income inequality, and they also conduct heterogeneity analysis. And so yes, they do find income inequality is lower with enhanced digitalization, but perhaps the more interesting findings come from the heterogeneous effects, where they find this relationship holds in the Central West region at the community, at the household community level and the household level, but they also find that this relationship does not hold for community level at in the Eastern region. So there is a kind of differential effect. And they also find that this reduction effect of digitalization holds for communities and households below certain GDP per capita cutoff line set by the authors. So by using these two different measures of income inequality, they continue their analysis at the community level and the household level. Though it's not fully fleshed out in the paper, I'm sure the authors have rationale for doing so. So it would be good to be able to explain why you guys are doing this. And after demonstrating the reduction effect of digitalization holding, the author investigate potential mechanisms as to why this may be happening. So their guesses are that with greater digitalization, it could be that income inequality is reduced by increases in potentially household wage income, business income, or even investment income. So others look into the relationship between digitalization and employment, and they find that the effect was most pronounced in the Central Western region and low GDP region, and also among households with high and low levels of education. And lastly, they also look at the relationship between digitalization and risk financial market participation of households. So while it is convincing to be using two measures of inequality, I was actually less convinced of the ICT index. The index includes a measure on digital finance, but you guys are also controlling for the number of banks in the analysis. So you'd be capturing the same thing with two variables. So it may be worthwhile to check what the digital finance measure is capturing. And also we use an index using vector analysis for data reduction purposes. Either you want to get a small set of variables from a large set of variables, or you want to create an index with variables that measure similar things. But when you look at the results of your index, there's only one factor with eigenvalue greater than 1, and other eigenvalues are small. So it may be useful to include some of the indicators that you are able to interpret well in terms of how digitalization may be contributing to reduction in income inequality in China. So as explained previously, there are significant heterogeneous effects, but you really don't explain the cutoff line for GDP per capita and levels of education. So it'll be useful for the reader if you could explain that further. And there's no mention about what type of economic activities are pursued by the households. There's emerging research about the role of digitalization for sustainable rural development in China, for example. So if data permits, it would be interesting to see how household income inequality improved depending on the economic sector, or maybe it improved regardless of the economic sector. So this is my last slide. The others do an extensive job of exploring mechanisms, but you don't provide why these mechanisms may be working. So it'd be important to provide evidence from previous literature or anecdotal evidence from the field. Yeah, so I'll close here, but just overall, really nice paper, maybe just a bit more details on how you're using the variables and why this would make sense for the Chinese context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Yoon. Professor Yu and or Grace, can you please respond in 3 minutes? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks for your comments. Existing studies tend to measure digitalization, focusing on certain industry applications such as digital finance or artificial intelligence, or focusing on ICT devices such as mobile phone or internet penetration rate. Such a measure may not comprehensively engage the development of digital economy in recent years. Since the ICT index we plan to construct is at the city level, lots of data a lot are available at the city level. And finally, we choose 7 indicators, development related indicators that where data is available, and construct this ICT index. In fact, analysis that the engine value is 3.5, which is bigger than 1, and this is suitable to index creation. Okay, and then under the cumulative variance contribution rate is 0.7. Okay, and okay, and other suggestions we will explore further, and that is my response.
Thanks, Professor Wu, and Thanks, Professor Yun. I would like to further add to Dr. Wu. Basically, for the sub-regional or subsample tests, Eastern and Central Western sub-region is classified. Basically, in China, Eastern region is more developed, and the Central and West region is relatively less developed. This classification is classified by location. And then on top of that, we also classified the cities in our sample with GDP per capita, so which accurately captures income levels. So hopefully both can put together can reflect the picture. Basically, we wanted to show well whether this income gap mitigation effect of digitalization is more pronounced in richer area or a poor area. So that is the purpose. And then I think for the digital level, education level, it is we split the sample by median or mean. I think we split by mean. We will check for that one, but definitely we will spell out in the paper. And then for I fully agree with you about considering the family's activity sector. But when we design this, we are thinking to control that with household fixed income. Fixed effects. So basically, hopefully that can account for the primary activities of the household type. But I think, yeah, we can also consider include that. Hopefully it will not drop off when we include household fixed effects. And then the other suggestion, I think it's the bank in the community. This is relatively, yeah, I think your comment is good. We will check if the financial technology will capture something similar information with the bank, or maybe we just drop the bank branches in the community as a control variable. For that one, we will check. I think that's largely the our feedback from your question.
Thank you so much, Grace and Professor Yu. And again, thanks to Professor Yun for good constructive comments. Again, there doesn't seem to be any item in the Q&A box, so we will move to the final action, which is one of the external advisors for this digitalization project, Professor Willem Smith of Fulbright University, Vietnam, giving his wrap-up comments on the module. The floor is yours, Willem. You have about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dong-Yung. Hello, everyone. I would like to congratulate all the presenters with their amazing papers. I would like to share a couple of my comments. I have written it up here. Okay. What we see here is 3 papers in this module. The commonalities. Do you see the commonalities here? Dong-Yun?
Yes, we see. Yes, we see them. Please go ahead.
Yeah, all of those are large cross-sectional data sets, rigorous data and adequate data analysis, and various robustness checks. It's quite impressive on how the authors have dealt with all kinds of possible criticism, or dealing with the limitations that come along with cross-sectional data, and moving towards proof for some causality. The differences is that you're seeing on different levels the data. The first paper on global, other 2 papers focus on an important economy in the world that has gone through rapid digitalization and economic growth, China. Also quite interesting is the diversity in dependent variables from ranging from formalization and global value chain participation, energy poverty, and income disparity. Allow me to add a couple of other things. Is that if you look at the measurement of digitalization, there is wide disagreement among the papers, from very simplistic that we saw for the World Bank data to a very advanced measurement of the digital village, which was actually quite interesting to see. Also to see that it is actually a multidimensional measure, and maybe that's a comment for the later paper. For later paper, to make it into one dimension is maybe not the right right approach if it's a formative measure. For paper 4 on enterprise digitalization, that is largely overlapping with the comments on the discussant. Very strong robustness checks and data analysis adequately done. Points to think about is that it's a limited measure that of digitalization, only email and websites. There is some skewed data on the formalized towards formalized businesses. So I wonder how the World Bank actually collects data on informal businesses. I think there is a selection bias there. The way to deal with that is maybe looking at twin studies, looking at comparable and matching those with types of businesses that are formalized, and taking samples from that universe and matching that with non-formalized businesses, and then running the analysis. That we could deal with that skewedness. Otherwise, one clarification question maybe to the author is how to deal with the different data, years of data collection per country, because there's differences in that. An idea to think about theoretical framework is to look at, do you see the slides, by the way?
Yes, we see it's slide 2.
Do you see cost benefit? No. No, I see. Okay. Sorry, here. These were the ones that I was showing. Yeah. Okay, this is, I don't know why my, so this was the comments on the first paper. And just a thought to think about is digitalization as a frame with a theoretical framework, how that changes the cost benefit for formalization, and building a theory around that to test, and global connecting to a global value chain is probably one of the benefits. For paper 5, also connecting to the discussant's points, is a novel research question. Mentioned the discussant mentioned 4 strengths. I agree with. The digital village, I think, is a very unique measure, quite exciting. Also, the paper looks at moderation effects, and then finds actually quite a lot of differences among areas. The points to think about is, redefining the dependent variable of energy poverty, but also to think about what is the different effects of this composite measure, right? Are there separate different effects of the digital village dimensions? Because I think different ones have maybe related to public investments that are at no cost for the household, versus that there are private expenses related to getting clean energy. Finally, the last paper on ICT and development. I will want to echo that it's an important research question. That is a very good argumented choice for the data collection context. Why China? Given the size, the rapid digitalization, and the variety of income disparity. Then the data set is quite extensive on the city level. Robustness checks are very convincing. Then, in addition to what the discussant mentioned, digitalization is not a uniform or reflective measure. It's a formative measure, and maybe theorizing about those different ways how digitalization actually is composed, and how that works on how different aspects work on income disparity. Other points is I thought that the argument is mainly for income inequality within a community. And while for a society, a country, it's important that inclusiveness and income equality is promoted across communities. And so that is what I link that I think is missing in the paper. How actually digitalization can promote between community equality, income equality. Yeah, and then I had some other points that it shows that it's not over, that the paper is overemphasizing a very positive point of view. I think it shows also arguments for more the pessimistic point of view that it is it helps very much digitalization, the higher income to adopt it early, but the marginal effects of adoption later for them is lesser. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for this great afternoon. I enjoyed reading the papers.
Thank you so much, Willem, for the concise yet very insightful comments. Now, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers and discussants. This concludes day one of our workshop. Today, we looked at digitalization and inclusive development. Tomorrow, the workshop starts at 12:55 Tokyo time. That is 11:55 Manila time. Over to you, Dina. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for reminding. Thanks to all speakers, and we are looking forward to see you tomorrow. Please join. The same link will work for 3 days. Tomorrow will be day 2, and today we did digitalization and inclusiveness. Tomorrow will be digitalization and low carbon development. So please join us tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.